Howdy. Merry Christmas. I hope everybody had a Christmas full of amazing, or worse, I hope you had the Christmas you deserve. Or better, I guess. This is going to be a live stream where I will answer all of your questions, and it will last as long as the questions do. I am going live at the time Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord, usually goes live, but I'm giving him a chance to spend some of the time that he can with his 19 kids under 5 because of the holiday. So for those of you who are sick of your family and want to hang out with somebody else for a while, here I am. The intro to this video is going to give you time to get questions into the chat, questions like the one that Frank, Old Guy REI, asked, and we will get to after the intro. Why does it always feel like we are in a recession? Why does everybody always think we are in or about to start or have been in, and they're manipulating the numbers, a recession? I'm going to give you 6 reasons why this is a reality, the reality that we live in. But more importantly, I want to talk about why this is so dangerous, why it's actually really bad. So first, before I talk about why everybody always thinks we're in a recession, people are currently saying we're in a recession. We've been in a recession and they're manipulating the numbers, or it feels like we're in a recession, or next year is going to be the biggest recession. And just some key indicators, right, from the last few years. We just got Q3, third quarter GDP growth, right? So for a recession, GDP growth needs to be really small, but it was 4.3, higher than expected. So that's an expansionary phase. But currently, everybody that I know is saying we're in a recession because things feel expensive. Well, of course they do. Unemployment needs to hit that 7-8-ish% to start a recession, or to feel like we're in a recession. But we're still under 5%. It's like 4.6. Yeah, it's worse than it has been. There's been some times where it was actually significantly lower. Make sure my mic is not muted. Done that before. But if unemployment isn't spiking, we're hearing all of the layoffs, right? And a lot of layoffs are in IT because of AI hitting IT first. Or worse, or better, your HR department, some of their activities can get closed, can get a lot more attention than they're due, because they're the one that talks to everybody. Not everybody talks to every department at your company, but HR talks to every department at your company. So when those layoffs hit, it feels like it's everybody. And they want to spread fear because they want to make sure you don't think it's about to happen to you, when they're really concerned about themselves. Wage growth. Maybe you didn't get the raise or the promotion, but most of the people I know did. Wage growth outpaced inflation this last year for the first time I remember in like half a decade. Just because it didn't hit yours doesn't mean it isn't hitting a lot of other people's. Then the stock market, in a recession, just crashing the stock market, it's at record highs. And the only time currently it's not at record highs is when it comes down a little from the peak, but then it goes up and passes it again. We're higher now than we have been at any point in time, as far as the stock market goes. And then the one, because I invest in real estate to reach financial freedom, which is what I make content for, is to help the average individual realize you can reach financial freedom in 10 years or less and make work completely optional, even if you're not starting from the best position. Well, real estate has to be going down if we're in a recession, right? Which is not actually true. So this is kind of a counterproductive point. But at 4 out of the last 6 recessions, home prices went up. But we have this post-traumatic stress financial disorder from the 2008 crash, which was caused by a recession hitting housing. Home prices are up. Across the country, market-wide, which there isn't one market, it's up 1 to 2%. In Washington, where there is no R, where I invest, it's up over 5%. Rents are up because they instituted rent control, so it's a booming economy. But why do we see everybody talking about we're in a recession? First, they try to make it political. The real damage happens when you think we're in a recession, or we're going to be in a recession, or anything like that. Because the real damage isn't a recession or the economy. right? Real wealth can be made during a recession. The real damage is if you believe it's always starting, you're going to live like it's already happened. People tighten their belt. They cut spending. Worse, they stop investing. They hoard cash to feel safe. And then inflation quietly erodes it. Fear replaces strategy. Decisions get delayed. Action stops. Analysis paralysis kicks in because some people are waiting for certainty that never happens. Opportunities don't disappear. You just miss them. Most people don't lose money in crashes. They lose money doing nothing for years. Recessions come and go. Fear can last forever if you let it. For all the people saying we're in a recession, here's one more data point before I get into the 6 reasons why people always feel or think that we're in a recession. Just a couple of numbers here. In 2015, right? This is a decade ago now. A decade ago, which we really haven't experienced a true recession since then. Right? There's been some, what do they call it? I don't know. Some of the metrics were hit, but not all of them, not a real recession. It just feels like a recession. But in 2015, there were 860,000 or so bankruptcies filed. Just under 1 million, 860 in 2015. That's a lot. But to quote Jason Hartman, the Jason Hartman question, compared to what? In 2018, so for 10 years, we haven't really experienced a recession. We had almost 1 million bankruptcies a decade ago in that year. In 2018, right, 3 years later, bankruptcies went down. This is when I was getting interest rates on my mortgages above 6%. And everybody was saying the crash has to happen because nobody can afford a house when prices have been going up for over 5 years straight and interest rates were on the rise. Well, we had 770 or so bankruptcies in 2018. So that's kind of normal numbers. We've not had a recession since. We've been going up ever since in stock market growth, home value growth, rent rise, wage rise, inflation, all those things that go up that don't happen during recessions. And then 2023, getting a call from my brother, not the one that knows that I'm live. Should have answered, but man, the things he would say on live stream would have probably got my channel shut down. In 2023, this is post-pandemic, post-world shutdown, post-2022 market correction for stocks. 450 or so thousand bankruptcies filed. Half the number filed in 2023 that were filed in 2015 and less than 2018. 2018, let's just make up some numbers here because words are hard. Now, here's one of the things where people might feel like we're in a recession. Because if we look at 2023 numbers, 450 or so thousand bankruptcies filed. In 2025, we're on track to have over 550,000 bankruptcies filed. Right? It's 100,000 more. It's a recognizable percentage, 15 to 20% more than we had 2 years ago. End of the world. World is ending. Well, in 2015, since then we haven't had a recession. We had over 800,000. In 2018, we had over 700,000. In 2025, we have over 500,000. It doesn't sound recessionary. It just sounds like we have more this year than we did 2 years ago. And to really give you some idea on this bankruptcy thing, let's talk the last actual big recession, 2008. How many bankruptcies do you think happened in 2008? Right? We had 860 or so was the kind of peak that I could find since 2015. It trended down. Last 2 years, it trended up to 2025. I think we've had a lot of commercial rates correct. Their loans are maturing. There's all the free money that was coming out, the stimulus, IEDL, PPL, all the type of lending that came or free money that came out has gone away. So bankruptcies have ticked up a bit. But in 2008, 1.1 million bankruptcies filed. So yeah, recessionary. Over, is it 200% of where we're at now? So 100% would be where we're at. 200% would be doubling where we're at now. To even get to 2008, that wasn't even the recession. That was the start of the recession. 2011 was the real trough of the recession. In 2011, 1.4 1.4 million bankruptcies filed. So if people think we're in a recession now, they're cooking the books, we would have to basically triple the number of bankruptcies people are having now to get to where we had in the last recession. But that doesn't mean that people aren't going to feel or think that we're in a recession, because people care more about feelings than facts. There will be people in the comments, people in Futureland, who argue that we're in a recession now, no matter what the data says, because they feel like it. So here are 6 reasons people always feel like we're in or about to be in a recession. 1, prices go up faster than your pay. And it's usually prices for things you actually care about. Food, fuel. Fuel is called rockets and feathers. Goes up like a rocket, comes down like a feather. Even though we are during this recession, people are saying the lowest fuel in 4 years. And every idiot in a blue state goes, well, it's not low where I am. Well, no, screaming eagle dookie there, Skippy. It's because you vote blue, so you get all the taxes, so your fuel doesn't cost as much as it could in a red state. It's not good or bad. It's just pay attention to reality. So when people say fuel is at an all-time low, they're talking about countrywide, not in your stupid little state where everybody votes dumb. Inflation goes up faster than your wages do. And one of the reasons is because wages cause inflation. So as your wage increases, you will see inflation hit too. Inflation doesn't mean recession. It just makes it feel like you're in a recession because things are harder for you to buy. People don't experience averages, right? You don't feel that the fuel is the lowest it is everywhere when you're in an area where fuel is expensive. There are places where it costs more than others. There are what do they call food deserts, where food might cost more than somewhere, not in Thailand. Every 3 blocks is a complete self-sustaining community here. Wonder how much weight I'm going to gain on this trip. The economy is growing means nothing if your grocery bill is 40% more than what it was a few years ago. Bad news is louder than good news. So this is the second thing that makes us always feel like we're in a recession. If your company hires a bunch of people, you might see some new faces. But if your company lays off a few people, people write articles about your company. Bad news, if it bleeds, it leads, right? People are talking about the layoffs and the cutbacks. They're not talking about all of the AI companies that are hiring. They're not talking about how, yeah, you can hate me all you want, but tariffs have motivated some companies to say, in the next several years, we're going to move all of this production to the US and we'll have all of these jobs, which starts infrastructure building, which starts city planning. And yeah, it's painful. It's going to take a few years before any of that has an impact. But the alternative is to do nothing. So the bad news that tariffs are happening gets more publicity than the trillions of commitment to spend on infrastructure and production in the US that is happening. So the bad news gets the press. Recession incoming, right? That's going to get clicks. Moderate growth continues. Doesn't get clicks. The media keeps cycling worst case scenarios. All the what ifs. This is what could happen. This is how bad it could be. The risk of a recession will always be more popular than the reality of whether we're in a recession or not. The third thing that makes people feel like we're always in a recession or about to be in one is interest rates feel like a recession, even when the economy is strong. Higher rates hurt because your mortgage feels unaffordable. You feel like the lock-in effect. If you have one of the lower mortgages, you feel like if you want to buy the next place, it's really hard to find cash flow. The next property I purchase probably won't cash flow because not most. What is 3 out of 8? 3 out of 8 times I purchased properties that were break-even deals and reached financial freedom in a decade. Because I'm not worried about yield like all the people that most of the people I deal with, they're always, oh, what is my cash on cash return? Here's the cash on cash return. Is this a good deal? That's one of about 19 metrics that I look at to figure out if it's a good deal or not. But the mortgage rates are higher. Makes it feel like it's harder to buy. Harder to buy sounds like recession, but your credit cards are tied to interest rates. So if you're making minimum payments and your card is growing, yeah, you feel like you're in a recession. Car payments can jump with interest rates going up too. Investors freeze. Like there's good investors with solid portfolios that are just like, yep, I'm going to wait. Things are too weird. And they're going to miss some opportunities. Not the opportunity of timing the market, but the opportunity of being in the market. The fourth thing that makes people feel like we are always in or about to be in another recession is recessions are personal, not national. We don't live in the economy. Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time says it in a way that I really like. He said, a recession is when your neighbor gets laid off. A depression is when you get laid off. Because it's personal. It's about you. It's not about what's happening in Texas, Florida, California, New York, Seattle, wherever you hear about these big shifts happening, the big swing. Politics make people move one way, then the insurance makes them move another, or they all move to Boise because they want to avoid the COVID crap. And they get to Boise and they have the worst winter freeze in a decade. So you have the boomerang effect of everybody moving back, and you have all of these people paying attention to the market. And it's not where you live. Did you move to Boise? Did you bounce back home? Yeah, some people did, but not most of the people that will ever see this video. If you're in tech and you get laid off, it feels like a recession. Tech is not an easy job to replace all the time. But if you work in healthcare or the trades, like you have a CDL and you went to commercial driver school in Washington and got an actual career, like my son went to college to get a degree in business information technologies, got a job at PayPal, but ultimately had to quit and get a CDL so he can make enough money to pay off his college loans. If you work in the trades, it doesn't feel like a recession. Every stinking company that you can go to and get a 20% increase right now has a now hiring sign in the window or on their website. But yeah, in the trades, some of them don't even have a website. They literally have a sign in the lunchroom saying, hey, anybody's cousin looking for a job. The housing market is behaving differently. Millions of people can feel the pain without the country being in a recession. And when we talk about millions of people, I want you to remember this one stat. Write this down. 23% of Americans have an IQ under 89. It's about 78 million people. So every time you're arguing online with somebody about something being a recession or being a political stance, you're probably arguing with somebody who is actually mentally retarded. Doesn't mean it's bad. Just be aware that that's who you're arguing with. The fifth reason why people feel like we are always in or about to be in a recession is social media creates the post-traumatic stress when it comes to finances. Look at your friends and what they're doing. We have the 2008 trauma. It's almost impossible to watch a financial video about any subject, crypto, stocks, business, it doesn't matter, without people referencing what happened in 2008. How many years ago is that now? And how many elements like 2008 do we have? Because it's not about price. We had 51% adjustable rate loans on mortgages. We had ninja loans, no income, no job, no requirements. You could just state your income as to whatever you want, wasn't verified, and borrow more than you should. You could do 105% financing to wrap up closing costs into your mortgages. Then they were sold as toxic debt. Yeah, it's on the rise. It's up to like 11% now from 3, then it was 8 for a while, but now it's like 11. So it's on the rise. It's not good, but it's not half. We have pandemic issues. The 2020 shock. There's still people wearing masks by themselves in a car that are active on social media, that we feel like it is the end of the world all the time. The permanent doom YouTube thumbnails. People are trained to expect a collapse. Look at how many views the doomers get, or I call them groomers, the grifters that Zuber calls them, the people who make money saying, so because the doomer says everything's going to fall apart, there is no solution, so sit back and wait. The grifter says everything's going to fall apart, I have the only solution. That's just as bad. Anybody saying wait or hurry should be blocked. The crash is coming. This time is worse. You're too late. How many times are you going to see these before you realize you're paying them with clicks and views? even during expansionary times like we are in currently. And the sixth reason why people feel like they are or are always going to be in a recession is the gross domestic product, the GDP, is a blunt instrument. It measures production, not comfort. GDP can go up while living standards go down. Inequality widens. They call this the K-shaped recovery. And this is why I'm making content. Yeah, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. By choice. This is a choice. The person who chooses to rent and the person who chooses to buy is impacted by inflation. Inflation caused the asset to go up in price. Inflation causes rent to go up in price, or rent causes inflation to go up in price, either way. And then you take it a step further. I'm not saying buy a house. I'm saying buy a duplex or a house with an ADU or a triplex or a fourplex. Use the same 30-year fixed rate debt, same low down payment with a conventional owner-occupied loan. Live in one house, rent out another, put a fence between, no shared living space. It's just like having a neighbor, except you get to screen them. Now you own an asset that benefits from inflation. You have levered appreciation, levered depreciation, all the tax benefits from owning a rental. The person choosing to rent is paying a mortgage. It's just not theirs. The K-shaped recovery happens when we have growth. The stock market's growing. If you're not dollar cost averaging into the stock market, which I'm not, I'm losing out on the stock growth. If you're not investing in real estate like I do, you're missing out on real estate prices going up. Stupid states like Washington, where there is no R, implementing rent control, which is adding tens of thousands of dollars a year to my profit, not just my bottom line and top line, but to the profit of what I'm keeping. Thanks for that. Even though I tried to stop it because it's really bad for the tenants. Costs concentrate on renters and workers. Benefits go to business owners, asset owners. But people are choosing not to own assets. If you're not into crypto and you're not watching Lead, Pray, Hodl here on YouTube, Coach Nick Massey, and you're figuring out how Bitcoin works and different investing strategies, and it's the highest performing asset of the last decade, even though it took a little dip recently, which should be a buying opportunity. If you're not doing that, it's your fault for missing out. It's my fault for missing out on the Bitcoin possibilities. It's my fault for missing out on the stock possibilities. I chose real estate. Choose an asset class. The asset owners benefit from recessions, from booming economies, from growth phases, from all of these different things. But if you fall into the fear of always feeling like it's a recession or we're about to be in one, you will pause, you will hold back, you will not take action. I hope this video at least makes you think, because whether we're in a recession or not, how you benefit is by taking action, educating yourself, and figuring out how to benefit from good or bad times. And now, the rest of this video is going to be getting to your comments. I hope everybody is having a Christmas full of amazing. I did. It was yesterday for me. It is Friday the 26th here in Thailand, where I am for not quite another 2 months, month and a half left, I guess. I'm here until the One Rental at a Time event in Las Vegas. I will see you there, hopefully. But howdy, everybody. Merry Christmas, Ninja Vanish. Good to see you here. This is my first time using StreamYard. I'm glad to see that it's actually live so that there's people in the comments because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. They changed Zoom, so I'm struggling with that. Wayne Wong, Merry Christmas. Howdy. Jay Mollis, howdy. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day, a day full of wonderful. Frank, good evening from lovely Watsonville. What is scarier, selling and simplifying, or holding and hoping? Never get caught living on hopium. That would be the fear. I wouldn't want to see somebody living on hopium. Why is my camera freaked out? See me. I've turned into John Cena all of a sudden. All right. That's no bueno. Look at that. That's how you make yourself look prettier. Why? There we go. So if something is bad and it has you hoping that it improves, things, you have a place where you keep having evictions, or the property manager, you keep firing and go through them, or you're just hoping that a stock improves, or that crypto doesn't drop 50% again like it has 9 times in the last 10 years, which would only matter if you had to sell. I think I'm okay. I would rather get rid of an asset, sell and simplify. Cody Davis is doing this now. He had a couple of 100 units. He's getting down to like 140 or 100 or something, like his target goal. Newer properties, less turnover, better quality of tenant, whatever his motivation is. He's doing the right size of his portfolio. And I think it has something to do, Frank, with, are you not really tied to age, but in the beginning, the middle, or the end of your financial journey? So in growth phase, I don't know that I would sell and simplify. I would sell a toxic asset, one with multiple turnovers, like Matt, the lumberjack landlord, had a triplex he had to get rid of because it was a challenge. But you had one where the property management was an issue. It was in a market you weren't really familiar with. Getting rid of it is probably smart. To sell and simplify, you also got rid of a lot of the debt that it took to get that place ready. So I would have probably made those exact same moves. I don't remember or not. We've had a few conversations. If I thought that's exactly what I would have suggested you do, is to get rid of that one, but then focus on one more, simplify by adding assets in the markets that you do understand, or have a good property manager in, or the numbers make more sense. But yeah, no, I'm a fan of simplifying over living on hopium. In growth mode, I would be more about adding assets. Towards the end, when you're in retirement age, I'm not really a fan of, I'm not going to sell properties and pay off debt currently. So in my 50s, I'm still going to be adding properties. I'm going to probably add 1, maybe 2 properties in 2026. I'm set up to do it. I'm going to sell one because this is simplifying. This one is too far from my other rentals, too far from all my friends and family. I have some issues with the permit office in that city, so I actually just want to get rid of it for that reason too. Sometimes it's about quality of life, not just math. So I get to the point where I'm going to lose that property, sell it, deploy the money into a couple of other properties, and buy another one. But in my 70s, I don't know that I'm going to feel like adding properties. There's a chronology to age, right? And in my 70s, I'm going to probably, this is my exit strategy, sell a couple, which is selling to simplify. 1 or 2 properties at that point will tackle all of the remaining debt. So it'll be a portfolio owned free and clear. And then I'll sell or finance it probably in 3 or 4 different sales to different people, probably not just all one person, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket, but create 3 or 4 different notes with 3 or 4 different investors that I have relationships with over the next couple of years or decades, and then get the payments for the next 30 years. Own the notes. Chronology to investing life, just like chronology to life. The spectato. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Howdy. Chris Wissing, hello from North Coast, California. Howdy. Sean, Merry Christmas. Aloha, Mark. Melekileki Maka. I probably said that wrong. Que pasa, homies? Mal. Muy mal. Corridor Chris, howdy. Richard Riley, howdy. From Monterey, California. Merry Christmas. Alex, howdy. Merry Christmas. Pewter Liver. Have you seen the price of silver? Yes. I don't own much silver. I own enough small coins. The idea is I don't want to own ounces of gold. I want to own 10th ounces of gold, because when there is a blackout, electric shutdown, like I was in Portugal, all of a sudden currency became really hard to get. They shut down power. And yeah, it was just for like a day, but nobody knew if power was going to come back on because they had never experienced a multiple countrywide outage like that. And so it was really quickly going to become a barter system. So in the US, if the grid ever goes down for weeks or a month at a time, yeah, I'm not, what do you call it? I'm not a prepper, because you don't need to be prepared. You just have to have enough arms and munitions to take all of this stuff from the person who got prepared. That's apocalyptic mentality, at least what the Marines taught me. So what I have is barterable currencies: 10th ounces of gold, ounces of silver. And a friend of mine he invests heavily into silver, what I would call heavily. He's got 6 figures in silver. And his 6 figures became multiple 6 figures of silver because of what's going on with silver currently. It's almost like I think silver might win the debate on Zuber, going, what will reach, was it gold to 5,000, Bitcoin to 150, or silver to 100? It could be silver. But I'm not a metals investor. That's not my cup of tea. Alex, howdy. Merry Christmas to Freeman, R. Freeman, howdy. Chester, good evening, everyone. Merry Christmas. Anthony Hermes, Merry Christmas. Feliz Navidad. I like the breakdown of if you were to start investing and the market crash were to happen right after. Me too. I mean, I did it worse than we've ever seen. I did a consecutive 10% decrease every year, and Zuber pointed that's not how it would be. It would be 10%, and then it would be 10% of 90 because we were down 10%, and then it would be 10% of 10% less than that. But I just did 10% every year, and it still mathematically made more sense to buy a rental today than to wait 4 years until we had a 40% crash and buy then. You made more money buying today. Chris, howdy. Alex, what are the top 3 optimization tools you have learned from Matt? Probably the first one is how to advertise my rentals better. I made the mistake of, for the first decade of investing, of listing the rental like everybody else. Like, I went by the mentality of what is normal for my market, do that. And that was listing like an owner: age of building, square footage, school district, like all in paragraph form, all the crap that doesn't matter. And then Matt gave me something that changed finding a tenant to screening through multiple applicants to find a tenant. And it was advertise what tenants care about. And originally it was, go on Google Maps, look for parks, look for zoos or petting zoos or colleges or walking trails or all of this stuff. And so for about a year or two, I was doing that. But now that we have all these AI bots, Grok and Chat, I'll go in there and I'll say, here's the address of my rental, or talking with somebody in Texas and go, here's the address of this person's rental. What are 5 to 10 things within 3 miles that tenants might be attracted to? And get a list of things that you bullet point list, because tenants are looking for quality of life. Owners are looking for quality of asset. Renters don't look for quality of asset. So stop listing like that. Was probably the biggest impact that I've learned from Matt. What to upgrade? I had never done a rehab that included kitchen remodels. So I used Matt's cabinet access to the cabinets and put that in one place. And then Chesley used to work at a cabinet place. So I went from thinking, if I ever do a kitchen, I'm going to hire somebody, to where we did a kitchen together at her place. And I don't know that I ever would have done that without Matt's help. Would have just hired somebody. Third thing learned from Matt. It's a list. Being an operator, optimizing your portfolio, strategies to do that. I think one of the main things I've learned from Matt is something that he in turn learned from me, very painfully, and he's not happy about it. But I heard Matt talking about where he was in 2008 when the crash started. Right? He was renting to almost 100% of his tenants were in construction, because construction was booming for several years. So a good, safe industry. Well, he went from like 9 paying to 8 paying to 3 paying to 1 paying tenant, because that industry crashed. So I learned that, because I was watching a bunch of other people who suffered through 2008, I diversify by having 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, 1/3 working or retired. I've learned that I sleep a lot better with that. And Matt is a great example of what can happen if you do that. So Matt, in the last couple of years, went to about 20% of his portfolio in Section 8, and he has hated it. He really made a huge, I don't know if I'd call it a mistake, but he tried to do the right thing and it was the wrong thing for him. During the pandemic, they came out with an emergency rental assistance program. My portfolio, I only had, at the time when it came out, I had 16 units. Since then, I bought another duplex. But it was after 2021, because I had just closed on that one and gotten to 16. My portfolio is too small to get involved with anything like an emergency rental assistance program. When the housing authority reaches out and says, hey, rents in your area are $2,000 a month, we'll pay you $2,700 a month if you'll put these people in there, and we'll pay for a year. We'll sign a contract where we just pay for a year. I couldn't do it because I knew with 100% certainty that at the end of the year, that would become an eviction. And I had never had an eviction on my portfolio. I actually invested for over a decade without ever having an eviction. Told Chesla, I've never done that. This is super simple. And she got her first property and had 4 evictions in the first 15 months she owned it in the same unit. So it doesn't always go the same way. Well, Matt had 13 to 16 or something like that people from the emergency rental assistance program, which when you have 140 units at the time, that's 10% of the portfolio or less. He could take the risk. About 100% of them became evictions. And he went through 10% of his portfolio evictions at the same time. He handled it. It was small enough in his portfolio, but it also took an emotional toll. No, thank you very much. So I learned not to get involved in government programs like that, unless your portfolio and your mental bandwidth is big enough to be okay with it. Wayne Wong, some people's strategies seem to revolve around fear. Yes, especially the doomers. The doomers definitely revolve around fear. They profit from it. The grifters too. There's a little bit of fear in mine. I mitigate risk by diversifying location of properties, by asset type, and not wanting to scale too fast, right? It was 2 years to get one duplex, 2 years to get another. I believe in dollar cost averaging. When I did finally buy some stocks, I made sure it was less than 1% of my net worth. So I'm not a gambler when it comes to investing. It's funny, when I was dead broke, I used to gamble all the time. I'd go to the casinos or buy lottery tickets, that tax on the poor, just like everybody else that's poor buys those things. And as soon as I actually got some money, I don't gamble anymore. That's weird. Chris Wissing, aloha, Mark. Angel Ray, Feliz Navidad. Dion, thank you for all you do. May this new year bless you with more travel and good health. Thank you. I hope it does. I believe, I don't know if I'm going, but Chesla's going to Portugal now in March. I'm coming back to Thailand for next winter. Probably, I might go to Texas this year. We'll see. There'll be some traveling. Texas, the Australia of the US, where everything is trying to unalive you. Chester, not in a recession yet. Phase 2 of 3 of the Treasury yield curve uninversion is almost complete. Phase 3 will be in 6 months. Countdown from once the yield curve fully uninverts. Yeah, the yield curve inversion is something that I've not paid attention to because, if I didn't have YouTube, I wouldn't know 90% of what I do about my own portfolio. I own rentals that make more than they cost me. I don't have to work because of income. Done. That's my investing strategy. What was that? 11 words? No. The highest form of learning is teaching. And since I try to explain things to people, I've had to look up things, like most of the data that I used at the beginning of this video. Corridor Chris, unrelated, but I've been jumping in from Futureland in the members only lives. Highly recommend. Thank you. We will be doing a members only live. I believe it'll be Friday for you guys. It'll be Saturday for me. If I can get StreamYard worked out, it'll be interesting. Chester, phase 1 is when the Treasury yield curve first inverts and tells how long a recession depth, average total, magnitude of inversion, and duration, also duration of inversion lasts. Yeah, bunch of words for defining things that I don't tend to pay too much attention to. It's almost like I'm a dollar cost average real estate investor. So in stocks, you use an amount and a clock to say, every Monday, I'm going to put $50 into Bitcoin. That's dollar cost averaging. Every month, I'm going to put $500 into the stock market, where you're just going to, no matter what, if it's up, your portfolio is growing. And if it's down, you are buying more, right? You look at dollar cost averaging, you can usually outperform most day traders, since like 85 or 90% lose money anyway. So In real estate, I dollar cost average based on those two metrics that tell me when to buy. Am I ready? And did I find a great deal? So when I'm ready and I found a great deal, I buy a property. It has nothing to do with recession, interest rates, prices of properties. I don't pay attention to any of that. You use them as metrics in your decision to buy a property, but they are not what tells me, oh, I better hurry and buy, or I better wait and buy. Angel, something feels fishy with the economy. There's very little demand, and most people you talk to are in debt to their eyes. Well, get out of your circle. Go and look at the line of people to buy a Taylor Swift ticket, an average of $4,000 a ticket. And you see that it sells out and there's tens of thousands of people who can't even buy a ticket. Or go and look at any event, any public event, and see the mass number of people there. And you'll realize that, yeah, the people with the loudest voices are online bitching the most. But that's not most people's reality. I'm trying to think, I know one person who is unemployed. Of all of the people that I know in my entire life, outside of maybe somebody watching this video who, yeah, you might be unemployed, you might have just got laid off, but I know one person in my entire circle of people who's not currently working. In a recession, I would say it would be 20%, 30%. Pretty sure I know more than 100 people. We're not even at a percent of the people that I know that have even lost a job. So expand your circle. Does it feel fishy? Yeah. What feels fishy is what we really like as investors is a divided government. We want red or blue in the House and the Senate, and red or blue in the president, the executive branch, but not a solid left or solid right. We personally, politically might have a goal. I want one side or the other, but as an investor, you don't want sweeping changes to be able to happen. There is uncertainty when the government is leaning left or right enough for them to go, no tax on tips, and it passes. No tax on overtime, and it passes. Bigger deductible for Social Security, and it passes. Like, these are sweeping changes where businesses can pull back because they're not sure. If you have a divided government, it feels less fishy because, big changes can't happen. Things feel fishy right now because it's literally pulling rabbits out of a hat on what's going to happen next. And something we haven't even thought of yet could pass. I agree. Something feels fishy. But I don't know. People say they're broke, but every time I go out, restaurants are packed. There you go. Exactly. Thank you. Exactly my point. Alex, the last time we were in a recession, the government changed the definition of a recession. Exactly. That is how it works. I love it. It's a rolling recession. So R. Freeman, my real estate did really good in 2019 to 22. My W-2, even working for the 5th largest economy in the world, has been 3% raise. But a 3% raise is not a 5% or 10% reduction. I've worked at a company where everybody got a pay decrease and they stopped doing a 401k match. That was recessionary. But a 3% raise, I've worked at companies where you were there 5 years, you didn't get a pay raise unless you got a promotion. So getting a 3% raise might not feel good to you because maybe other years you got more, but to a significant percentage of the country or the world, 3% would be a huge raise. Old guy REI, are we as investors prepared for boring or addicted to growth? Good question. I love boring. I talk about this. So one of the things I get asked a lot, Frank, is how can I do what you did, but do it faster, right? I started saving and thinking about money in 2010 and I retired in 2022. So technically 12 years, but I didn't close on the first duplex until 2013. So from the first purchase of a rental to walking away from a job that I loved was 9 years. So I say about a decade. I'm counting the years where I started saving and working on credit score, moved into an apartment and rented out the house and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't actually purchase anything. From the date of purchase of an investment was 9 years to retire. And I get people ask me, how can you do it sooner? Well, don't start with $89,000 in bad debt you didn't know about. Don't be a single parent with 3 kids. Get a job that pays more than $17 an hour. Don't get laid off from law enforcement. Whatever it is to start your position better, maybe it'll go faster. But if you make a 10-year plan, you will be much more happy when it happens sooner than if you make a 5-year plan. And if it would have taken 8, you probably quit. So I get asked that all the time. one property after over 2 years of saving, and then one property 2 years later. That was 2 deals in 4 years. Was too fast. Because I was just starting to educate myself. If I had found YouTube University, Rich Dad Poor Dad, One Rental at a Time, BiggerPockets, all of these things to just absorb information from people who had done what I wanted to do, imagine how much better life could be. Are people addicted to growth, or are they addicted to bragging rights? Because growth addiction would be unit count, deals. So let's take my friend Millennial Mike, right? I would put him in the circle of closest friends, right? So Millennial Mike is investing in Gary at a distance, and he went through a big growth spurt for 5 years of adding properties. Went from 0 units to house hacking a duplex in an expensive market to investing at a distance, getting to 27 units, having some partnerships on some other deals, massive growth. I think he has more bragging rights as he increases cash flow and stabilizes debt than he does by adding units. So I'm really happy that he's addicted to growth and that he's not addicted to unit count growth, because it's more important to improve units and rent them out than it is to continue to add units, because thinner margins, more risk versus wider margins, less units, to me is a better portfolio. So I'm not sure that came out very well without putting a lot of research in how to articulate the sentence structure of that and put it into a learnable fashion. But if you're addicted to growth, growth doesn't always mean bigger numbers. Growth can be stabilization. Frank, you grew when you sold a property, tackled some debt, stabilized your unit. That's growth. Having one less unit count. So if you're addicted to growth and you want the bragging rights of unit count, you might not have sold. You might not have done a smart thing to make your portfolio better. So I think being addicted to growth is fine, as long as the growth isn't always bigger numbers. Does size matter? Chester. Alex, well, then there's that. What did Alex say? I missed it. Oh, yeah, there you go. The definition of recession. They did change that. Anthony, create your own economy instead of self-imposing a recession on yourself by blaming the economy for believing headlines. You create your reality. One of my favorite quotes from Bruce Lee, who I cannot stand. He was a ballet dancer and an actor. The proof is that not one person from his art has ever won in the octagon when the octagon was real, before all the rules came in. Back to real estate, back to finances. But Bruce Lee said, be careful what you say. Words have power. They cast spells. That's why they call it spelling. And if you say we're in a recession, you're going to feel like you're in a recession. You're going to take action like you're in a recession, which is no action. If you say there might be a recession, but my job is steady, I got a 3% pay raise when most people didn't get anything, I can dollar cost average, I see that if a recession comes, there might be some opportunities with assets that go on sale. Those words cast spells. Totally agree. Anthony, an electrician here. There you go. Nice. You could say you have a magnetic personality. Dave, howdy. Retired electrician. There was always work somewhere. There is still work for a retired electrician. Just let a few landlords know that you had a license and you're somewhat skilled, even if you're not working anymore. And believe me, they will put you to work. I've got a handyman that I don't know if he used to be a licensed electrician or had his license or has his license. I don't use him inside the panel because he doesn't like to pull permits, but I've used him for all kinds of other things. Yeah, create my own economy. I like it too. Totally agree. Alex, you have booked all of your stuff for Vegas. I have booked my flight there. I have not booked my flight out of there or the hotel yet. Dark Spring, howdy. Just watched a video. People have stopped investing as they are afraid of a recession. I don't get it. I have an emergency fund and invest like crazy when it's down. I made a ton during downturns. Exactly. They let fear. They let somebody watching that video convincing them that there's a recession coming. In 2021, I still have a screenshot of this. There's a real estate mindset who's a doomer for 5 years straight. And now his YouTube channel grew and he goes into some other topics and he's very entertaining. So give him props. But for the first 3 or 4 years, he was just, the crash is coming, the recession is here, real estate's going to crash, stock's going to crash, over and over. And he doesn't own any real estate. He's not an investor. In the comments, I saw somebody in 2021 saying, thank you so much for your content and information, because in 2020, my fiance almost convinced me to buy a house. Homes are up 40% in the last 5 years. He missed that. They or she missed that, whoever. They missed that opportunity because of that content. Anyone telling you to hurry or to wait should be blocked. SKREI, are you in your growth phase or harvesting phase? I would say growth phase for me was over in 2020 because I wanted the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. So I needed to grow the portfolio to that point because the least amount of units is 0, right? But there's no cash flow there for me. So I wanted the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. And my cash flow in 2020 passed 4 times what I live on. I live on around 4 because I live in a house hack, so I don't have housing expense, and I drive paid off vehicles. And I travel to Thailand, not Switzerland, right? I can go to places where it's affordable to go. Also a little bit to do with the weather and the scuba. I'm not sure the scuba in Switzerland is too great, but I'm sure it can be interesting. How long has that body been frozen in ice? But the growth phase for me had a couple of things that were different. One, I was actively hunting and looking for deals all the time, studying my market, watching for market shifts. Part of it was I wanted single family houses. They don't cash flow. I shifted to small multifamily. In 2020, what shifted was we had more remote work as an option than ever before. So I pushed out a little bit from the cities where remote workers had pushed up rents, but not prices, and bought 2 deals since then. Based on that metric, worked out really well. And so in growth phase, I wanted at least 70% loan to value. So if I had $1 million property, I wanted to owe $700,000 on it. So portfolio wise, I wanted 70%. That gave me the good amount of appreciation, because it's not just my money, but the bank's money. The great amount of levered depreciation. I've still never paid a penny in rental income tax. And had a buffer to where if things got so bad, I had to sell properties, because life can change at any moment. You might do something like get married or get a health concern or go to jail for life. One of those is worse than the others. And you might need to sell a property. Well, I wanted to not have to write a check to lose an asset. So I kept it at 70% or less. In retirement, I retired in 2022. Here's what's changed. I'm not actively looking. I let the money pile up, and in 2026, I'm probably going to sell a property to buy one, but I've also got a couple $100,000 I'm going to buy a property with, right? That's the down payment on something, because it's losing value in the bank. I don't want to diversify into stocks. I don't want to learn another asset class. I don't want to carry notes. I want levered appreciation, levered depreciation, and all of the control that comes from owning a rental on an asset class that I have mastered. I'm not at the diversifying phase yet. For me, that would be a net worth of 10 million plus, and I'm just above 3, not quite 4. And I don't care about net worth. I care about cash flow. I can give you the cash flow numbers too if you want me to rattle those off. But I don't want 70% loan to value in retirement, because I no longer have that drug that kills your dreams, a paycheck. So I wanted 50% loan to value, and my gross value is a little over 7 million on my properties. I owe a little over 1.5 million, so I'm far below 50%. So my next purchase, I'm actually going to use my VA loan for the first time, go 100% levered on a 4-plex, and get closer to 50% loan to value overall. But I'm in harvesting phase or stabilization phase and enjoyment phase. Right? I did a video not too long ago with the 3 amigos called, if you want to get rich, don't do what the rich do. Because what do? Sleep whenever I feel like it. Scuba dive 4 dives a day right now. I'm in Thailand. I don't have a job. I don't have a return home ticket. I'm not doing anything to increase monetization by selling my life 1 hour at a time. So you need to do what I did, not what I'm doing. What I'm doing would keep you broke. What I did was worked 60 plus hours a week, had a side hustle playing World of Warcraft and selling things online, invested in an asset class that I took the time to master, which for me was real estate, but could have been stocks, crypto, running a business. All of that is what it takes to become rich, but don't do what the rich do. So right now, people might call it the harvesting phase. I'm not selling off properties yet. That to me will be harvesting. I'm selling them, but it has nothing to do with the math. It's because I hate the city that it's in. I love the city, the location. I hate that permit office there so much that I just don't want to own in that city. And I want to be closer to my rentals, closer to my kids, closer to my friends and family. There's like a lot of other things that go into why should I sell that property. But yeah, there are different phases. There will be an exit strategy phase, which I talked about earlier, where I sell off 1 or 2 properties, tackle all the debt, seller finance, and carry notes, and just have payments without tenants, toilets, and termites. That to me is the real harvesting phase, but I'm not there yet. You like that idea? You call dibs on the fourplex? I think the triplex is the best performing asset of them, though, because the fourplex is in Spanaway, Alex, and the triplex is in Tumwater. And Tumwater rents are much different than Spanaway rents. My real estate is very noisy. Tenants complaints, repairs, city follow-ups, neighbor complaints, insurance shopping, leasing when tenants leaves. Nothing is passive. How's your world so quiet? The real estate acquisition phase, acquiring properties, is not passive. It is what I call life-consuming. It is going to take your entire life. For me, it felt like it took 20 hours a week to manage my first tenant because I didn't understand how to handle noise complaints, tenant complaints, neighbor complaints, HOA complaints. How stupid it is to own an HOA. That I want to own expensive properties, not cheap properties. Like I wish my properties cost more, not class B or class A, but I want in class C areas that are more expensive, working class tenants in an expensive market. I put systems in place. Like how many handymen do you have right now that are talking to your tenants? I've got at least 5 where there are group chat messages with tenants and handymen that they can contact at any point in time and say, this door is squeaky, my dishwasher is not working, my refrigerator quit, the hot water heater exploded and took out 3 blocks. Whatever they have to call the handyman and say happened, I'm in the chat so I can see, oh yeah, that might take my attention. I watch a couple chats. Who do I care how many times they text? I'm 15 hours ahead. Any type of texting I'm doing right now is in the middle of night for me or the middle of night for whoever I'm talking to. So I don't care about that kind of stuff. That matters when you're working. Middle of the night text can suck when you're working, but I'm not working anymore. So at least 5 handymen that I've filtered and screened and have a revolving door. Because handymen either do one of 2 things. Their life implodes. That's why they're handymen. They can't handle a job, and eventually they can't handle life. That's happened a few times. Or they become so good at being a handyman, they become a contractor, and now their jobs are more than I can afford for the small things I like to have done. Sure, a contractor is going to do something big. I'm going to add a room that has electric and a wet wall and all this, stuff. I'm probably going to go with contractor. But if I'm going to build a deck, if I'm going to swap out a window, if I'm going to have some drywall work done, it's going to be handyman. If I'm going to paint, it's going to be handyman, not a painter. It's much cheaper to hire a handyman to paint than it is a painter. So a list of at least 5. I use the Thumbtack app for that. I'm switching over to Hemlane. So if I have a tenant turnover, I don't have to go to the property. I can have a leasing agent go. Like all of these things that it took me years to get in place. It sounds like I know what I'm doing because now I'm trying to teach people what I do. But to get there was a really bumpy road with a lot of work and a lot of effort, and it was not passive to get there. Real estate ownership can be passive. Getting there is not. When you have tenant complaints, it's because you might need to educate your tenants. I have had to sit down with them and have like a parent Dion talk with them. Yeah, this is not something you call your landlord over. If your neighbor is too loud, here's the non-emergency police number, here's the code or the RCW or the WAC or the whatever goes for your state to say, here's what the noise ordinances are. You complain to the police come and talk to your neighbor. That's not a landlord issue. That's a police issue. Here's what's in the lease. Here's what I've had to add to the lease. Yeah, no water beds is a thing. You have to add to your lease for some dumb reason still. So it's a learning curve. It's getting systems in place, and it's having the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. I'm adding units because the systems are in place. If it took a lot of time, I would subconsciously probably stop myself from adding units. SK, do you leverage rep status? These are some great questions. I appreciate each one. I do not. When I was a W-2 employee, the 2 things that I couldn't hit in real estate that I still don't hit. 1, you have to work in real estate more than 751 hours. And I do 2 hours a month. That's not going to happen. 2, you have to work more in real estate than you do your W-2. No, I was working 60 plus hours a week. It's 2 hours a month to manage my properties. So no, I paid taxes on my W-2 income. It sucked. I paid a ton of taxes on W-2 income because I was making $17 an hour when I started investing. And I got up to like $60,000 a year for the first 8 years. And then the owners of the company realized I was making more money on my rentals than I was at work. So my last 2 years, I actually started making six figures. My two best paying years with $2 million in golden handcuffs was not enough to keep me because my cash flow was enough to let me escape. Instead of decorating the prison cell, I used my W-2 as the key to get out. And the lumberjack landlord was in a similar situation. He was working 60 plus hours a week. He was not working 751 hours in real estate, but he had a spouse who could. So he qualified his spouse as a real estate professional, or she is qualified as a real estate professional. Ashley does all of the bookkeeping and works in it and everything. So she's legally doing this. And he got six-figure checks back from his taxes. So great job. It works. He also did cost segregation studies because it worked. I've never done one because it would hurt me, not help me, right? Because what a cost segregation study does is it can take up to 25% of your depreciation in year one, right? So normally it's spread out over 27 and a half years, but you take 25% of year one. And I'm already never paying rental income tax. I pay taxes on W-2 income, but not rental income. So as a real estate professional, Matt, the lumberjack landlord, could use it against his W-2 because of his spouse. Well, I couldn't, so it wouldn't benefit me. But here's the negative that I didn't want. If you take a cost segregation study and you take all of those things that aren't amortized and you do them year one, and you take up to 25% of your depreciation in that first year, yeah, you could have saved a bunch of taxes, which wouldn't have impacted me. But now you only have 75% of your depreciation left for the rest of that time you own that property. So it never made sense for me to do it because it's situation specific, and you should check with your tax pro, not H&R Block, your tax pro who's focused on real estate, to find out what makes the most sense for you. Chester, the main point of me bringing up the actual phases of Treasury yield curve recession indicator is it's never a good idea to time a recession, just like it's never a good idea to time the market. Totally agree. Yeah, and you're smarter than I am, Chester, and you understand everything that you were saying, and you've taken the time to learn that, and you've probably invested in different things. I've only invested in real estate and Tesla when it went on sale last year, which I'm just going to sell. As soon as I owned it for over a year and it hits capital gains tax, I will sell it and not own any more stocks because I'm not a stock guy. But yeah, it's never a good time to time a recession. And it's never a good time to time the market. Take advantage of things that you see, but don't make that your whole investing strategy. Merry Christmas, cracked canvas. I have a smidgen of hopium in the night now, in me right now. I have 3 vacancies right now, not fun since it's about 50% of my portfolio. Richard Riley, yeah, that's challenging. Focus on that more than anything. This is not growth time for you. This is not look at deal time for you. This is not value add look at time for you. This is how do you get those units rented out? What is it going to take? Taxpayer of the Republic, catching a live stream. Yes, Merry Christmas. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Alex, my strategy revolves around fear, the fear of missing out. Yes, to the point where you even asked me the question, what if I close on this deal and then I find another great deal, which happened. Momo gets money. I believe I can scale up again in 2026 going into 2027 for, I didn't see the second half of that comment. Well, if you're in scale time, it's a good time to scale. If you are ready and you find a great deal. Love it. SK Real Estate Investing. Do you work with a CPA specialized in real estate? Yes. What value did they bring to the table beyond what you are already doing? Any expensive deductions, any benefits of bonus depreciation? No bonus depreciation because I wanted to have it in the future. I talked about that with the what do you call it? Cost segregation study. I do not care. I did I did a video recently on if you invest in real estate, what do you ask your CPA, right? The questions to actually ask your CPA. And one of the main ones is so many people go, I want to only work with a CPA who owns rentals. No, that's like saying I only want to work with a doctor who has performed surgery on himself. I want to work with a doctor who's done the surgery so many times he's bored or she's bored, right? I want to work with a CPA who has clients who own real estate. How many of your clients own real estate? How many of your clients own the asset type that I do? How many of your clients are buy and hold investors, not flippers, not live-in flippers, not wholesalers, not value add, not BRRRR, not what my strategy. How many do that? It's got to be at least a few. And how long have they been doing it? There's a whole bunch of questions in that video on what to ask by CPA, but yeah, I specifically do work with a CPA. They're out of Alaska, and they're the weirdest. So this is the weirdest thing. If I have a handyman that's doing good, I reach out to investors like Michelle and Curtis and Ryan and other people in my market, Josh, and I say, hey, this person does really well. And once in a while they implode and it screws me over because that shouldn't have been recommended. But if I've done several jobs with a handyman, their prices are good, their interactions with tenants are good, I'm happy with their work, I try to promote them and help them, right? Contractors, electricians, tree men, whatever. But my CPA is like, no, we're too busy. We can't take on any other customers. Don't recommend me. So in the one rental at a time community, a lot of people work with main bean counters, Bob Langworthy, and they get recommended to somebody that works with them so that you can do that. But yeah, your tax accountant brings a lot to the table, and it's not just doing your taxes. Here's what happens if you do a cost segregation study. Here's what bonus depreciation would do for you. Here's what your tax obligation will be. Sometimes they suggest maybe you should look at buying something, or maybe you should look at selling something, or maybe you should look at, don't use all of your write-offs. If your goal is to be bankable, use all of the depreciation because that doesn't impact bankability. Banks take the depreciation out of the equation. But maybe don't write everything off to make it look like such a big a loss on your real estate, because all you're doing is carrying forward a bigger loss to next year, or maybe you're not even going to use it, but it'll take away your ability to be bankable. Like, these are things a CPA can tell you that a tax pro might not think of. I hope you're enjoying Christmas. Christmas was amazing. Cracked Canvas, love Texas. There you go. Cracked Canvas, that's a nice Grace RA strategy, though. Nice. Taxpayer of the point. Do you provide backup power generators for your units? I think if I rented in the middle of Alaska where it was required, yes. No, I don't provide anything like that in my units. I don't supply washer dryers, no microwaves. I had one that had a microwave hood, and the microwave finally broke, or the vent finally gave out, and I replaced it with just a hood vent. More things that you provide, the more things that can break. And what happens if you provide a generator and it has a carbon monoxide leak that kills some of your tenants? Who's liable? You provided it. No thanks. What's normal for your market in your area? That's what I'd be likely to do. SK, do you typically find the properties to buy yourself, or your real estate agent does that? What value has the real estate agents had so far? Do they advise if good to buy, bid low, and lowest price? A good question. You date your real estate agent, you marry the properties. Your real estate agent is not your friend and not your mentor. Now, the agent that I've done my last deals with, we are friends, but that has nothing to do with the deals that we did. He's my agent because he listens to me. He provides his opinion, but he does what I say. So I'd never go, there's a property listed for $1 million. I want to offer 900,000, right? Agent should give you some resistance on that and going, well, you could hurt my reputation if you do that. No, but if I go, here's a property, it's been listed on the MLS for over 70 days. It's listed at $1 million. I think it makes sense at 900. I'd like to make an offer because it's been listed so long. That's why I'm making this offer. And he goes, yeah, let's do it. Submit the offer. They can provide me with their opinion. The value that they've done is the agent needs to do work. Like when I'm traveling, I've had my agents call the permit office to verify things. The last one was an encroachment. I wanted to verify that the encroachment recorded by the county was onto my property, not from my property onto someone else, because an encroachment onto my property means I'm the one who can sue. An encroachment on my property onto someone else's means they might be able to sue and make me move a barn or something. But an agent will do things like that for me, provide an opinion, do what I ask. And anytime they don't, you just move on. This agent that I'm working with made a huge mistake. When I first started working with him 5 transactions ago, he was brand new. But he worked for Keller Williams. He had a good, what do you call it? Support line or whatever. And I brought someone to him who was going to sell a house in a really expensive area. And my friend, who's the new agent, somebody said, oh, that's kind of high. So he went to the person and said, you're kind of listing too high, without doing the research on the market or something like that. And that person, we went to a different agent, listed it, sold it for like 130,000 above what he did within like 6 days. So he lost the commission. He had a learning experience there. But that was like in the beginning, I was fine with it because I'm the one that makes the offers. I'm the one that knows if it's a good deal or not. My agent has no idea. Your agent, no matter how much time you spend with them, is not going to understand your strategy, your goals, what you like about a property, what you don't like, no matter how detailed your email is or how good your lunch meeting was. You know what is a good deal or not. And it's not just math. I do ask the agent, can you look for red flags? Now, my agent knows my list of red flags. I don't want to buy short sales. I don't want to buy foreclosures. I don't want to buy in a good school district. I don't want to buy inside city limits. I have the list of things I don't want to do. And so he'll just go through and check. Now, once they say yes or no to no flags, I do my due diligence and verify. But it's just, kind of quicker to point out things to walk away from, more so than quicker to point out things you want to pursue. Because we don't go, this is bad, throw it away. This is great, make an offer. It's this is bad, throw it away. This is great, dig in and figure out if we should make an offer, right? Because math matters, but then it's all of the other things that we check that I do in the members only, which we will be doing Friday for you back home, analyzing deals to figure out what is a good deal. And it's never the lowest price. It's the best deal. I don't want to be the lowest price. The lowest price doesn't matter to me. The price most likely to get me the deal that makes sense to my criteria. That's what I want. But yeah, that's good. And for a long time, I used multiple agents. Now the last one has worked so well. I've done 5 deals with him. I probably still have some auto searches set up with other people, but I don't really bother with it. And since the NAR settlement, most agents are making you sign an exclusivity agreement, at least for 3 to 6 months, so they don't waste their time. So you might be more likely to work with one agent now than we were in the past. Karmic reciprocity. I'm replacing carpet. Most people I know are saying I should get the cheapest stuff. Even the carpet place assumed I would get the cheap stuff when they found out it was a rental. Should I cheap out? So when I do flooring, the only place I put carpet in is stairs because I live in Washington where there is no R. But it's really muddy, really wet and rainy. So carpet's just gross. So I don't put carpet in anywhere. I don't just rip it out. But when I have a tenant turnover, if the carpet does need to be replaced, I don't replace it with carpet. I replace it with LVP. And I don't go cheap. I want 30 mil wear layer. I want, if it's second floor, I want good sound suppression, the padding behind it, and all that kind of stuff. But be aware of what Lowe's and Home Depot charge for flooring. I've never purchased it there. I find a local floor trader. And for you, for me, it's the Tacoma Floor Trader or the Floor Trader of Tacoma. I forget. Zach is the owner now. I actually knew his dad when his dad owned it, but Zach's the owner now. And what companies like this will do is some industrial apartment complex or hotel chain will buy 90,000 square feet of flooring, and it's kind of high end. It's better than you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot, better than their highest tier. But they only use like 84,000 square feet of it. So they've got 6,000 square feet they sell to Tacoma Floor Trader or whatever floor. I'm butchering their business model. This is my perception. This is how I find the deals there. I work with Trevor. He's really cool. I've been working with him now for 10 years probably. He's like my sales rep. But I'll go in and I'll look at their current inventory of what has been brought in from deals where there's several thousand square feet. So I know there's enough to do my job. I buy enough to do my job with a little bit padded over for error. Because in the beginning, I did my own flooring because I'm stupid and wanted to save money. Then I hired people because I'm getting older and I don't want to do that anymore. Have them install it. I do LVP flooring in every room, bathroom, kitchen, doesn't matter. But that really high-end stuff ends up being cheaper than Lowe's and Home Depot's best stuff, which is way worse quality than what you can get at a local floor trader based on that metric. And you might have to shop around a bit until you find a place if you're not close to the place that I use. But there is something like that in almost every local area. My nephew found his version in Texas. There you go. I would not cheap out. Sometimes we make the decisions based on the amount of money that we have. But doing this, I still have not yet replaced flooring on a place where I have replaced flooring. I wouldn't cheap out. I know it shouldn't get super expensive stuff, but I want nice carpet. Yeah. So if you go with carpet, my brother put in nice carpet it was 3 or 4 times what LVP would have been. I don't understand. Not a fan of carpet. Cracked canvas. They are broke, though. They're using payment plans for a simple pizza delivery. I've seen people ordering pizza. They split it up into 4 payments, or buy now, pay later, DoorDash. Yeah, no kidding. How much have your properties appreciated since you bought them? Has the appreciation, hence cash out, enabled you to buy more properties? That is a great question. There was a year. So this is crazy. My best year as a W-2 employee, I think I made $200,000. This was my last year of working, last full year of working at the CDL school as the president of the company, where I had made $60,000 a year for the first 8 years working there. And then the last couple of years working there, the owners realized I was making more off rentals and they started paying me more, right? So I made $200,000. That year, I had over $200,000 in cash flow from my rentals. I had a $400,000 income year from a guy who started a decade earlier, $17 an hour, bunch of bad debt, single parent with 3 kids, just in 1 decade, complete life change, right? The appreciation that year was over $600,000. I made more in appreciation 1 year than any year, even if you combine my W-2 income with my rental income. So rental income, cash flow set me free. Appreciation has made my kids millionaires. I have never done a cash out refinance. I have never done a home equity line of credit. I've never sold and done a 1031 exchange. My home equity has done nothing except give me peace of mind. I recycled cash flow, not capital. If you recycle capital, like you said, can you buy more units? Sure, you'll have thinner margins, more likelihood of failure, a bigger portfolio, more tenants, toilets, and termites with less cash flow. No thanks. Hockey stick growth 15 or 20 years later, you will be exponentially richer than me. I don't want that. I wanted the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. So my kids will inherit millions. My goal when I started investing, and you can find this out in the book, which is available on Amazon, Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person, and on Kindle, and eventually on Audible as soon as they approve it. I didn't even want financial freedom. I loved my job. I thought I was going to work until I died. I wanted enough income from rentals so that when I was too old to work, I wouldn't become a financial burden to my kids. That was my goal. Financial freedom happened as an accident. Millions in net worth happened as an accident. I wanted cash flow. I recycled cash flow, not capital. Capital is HELOC, cash out, 1031, like you're recycling as the appreciation happens. Cash flow is I lived super frugally, didn't take a vacation for 8 years, drove a 17 and 19-year-old Jeep and Jeep Cherokee, didn't eat out, didn't have any streaming services or cable. I lived very frugally, meal prepped, planned meals, all that kind of stuff for 8 years. So that for the rest of my life, I'm in Thailand where we can go and have a steak dinner with drinks, appetizer, a creme brulee dessert, and it's like $12. And we found a resort restaurant where dinner last night was $270. Imagine the experience we had for $270 where you can get a great meal for $12. That's the freedom I wanted. I wanted the freedom where I can actually bring America with me and spend a bunch of money, like live like an idiot and spend a bunch of money and not care. I didn't want to retire frugally. If I had to retire frugally, I'd still be working. So the cash flow is what set me free. In the beginning, I recycled it. I didn't do anything like that. I would never have a $270 meal. Like I would call a person who did that an idiot, not realizing that that person is putting somewhere between $12,000 to $17,000 a month into an account without even trying to save for the next property. $270 means nothing. But in the beginning, $27 meant everything. So I recycled cash flow. Every single penny that came in for the first 2013, 2018, 5 years, everything from rentals went back into buying a rental, and everything from my W-2 that I didn't live on went to buying a rental. In 2018, I started living off of only rental income, and all of my W-2 income went to the next rental, and some of the rental, as that grew, went to buying. So cash flow bought the rentals. Bradley, you have 2 single-family homes, And you have the thing where you do with me where it like you hit enter on accident because we're not used to typing in the message. But cool. 2 single-family homes is more than most people will ever have. 90% of real estate agents never own 1 rental. So good. Alex, in that case, I like Tumwater over Spanaway. There you go. We should do a portfolio tour of my portfolio like we did yours. Millennial Mike and I did it one time, but we could do it. We can hit all of my properties in a day. Delta Force. After signing a lease, how long do you wait to relist the unit if the approved tenant doesn't pay the deposit? So that chronology doesn't line up with how I've ever done it. I've gotten deposits every time so far before signing a lease. Let's see if I can walk you through the chronology and how this happens. I have a property come vacant. I list it through Hemlane, so it goes out on Zillow and Apartments and all of those 15 different platforms. I get the applications in. I do open house tour. And some people, investors will say, you do open house tour because you want to create scarcity. You want to create demand. No. The main reason I do open house is because I own small multifamily units, house with ADU, duplex, triplex, fourplex, whatever. If I rent a unit to people, my other tenants have to live next to them, and my tenants matter to me. So I do open house version because it's very easy for applicants to be really nice. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Best foot forward. Very polite, because the landlord that they're trying to get a place from has an impact on their future. Of course they can be nice. I want to know how my potential tenants interact with people who do not have an impact on their future. So how do they interact with other people who come to look? Are they polite, cordial, rude, dismissive, argumentative, psychotic, whatever their thing is that might make them go, that's a disqualifier for me to rent to you. I could do that in an open house format, showing a rental. During the rental, I've had some tenants say, okay, we'd really like it. We've looked at it. We'd like to confirm. They filled out the application on Zillow or apartments.com. So I've already got their credit score, their work verification, which I can do myself, their eviction history, all of that comes to me. So I've already got them on the approved or not list. And I tell everybody, basically, the first person to pay the deposit is the one that gets it if they've qualified and pay the deposit. So then I confirm that they qualify. They can Zelle, Venmo, Apple Pay, Cash App, whatever, the deposit, I don't care. Usually, then I'll do the lease signing when they show up with a cashier's check for the rent amount. But I say, if you send a deposit, I will delist. But I will not take the listing down until I have received the deposit. So I get the deposit, take the listing down. 2 times now I've seen, once for one of my properties and once for Chesla's property, where the tenants back out after that and you relist it. And I would just get the notification and relist it. So yeah, it's a bit of a risk, but that's my chronology. I don't delist until I've got the deposit. Matt Steedis, totally forgot to make a live today. I'm going live because Matt, the lumberjack landlord, is spending time with his 19 kids under 5, and I want to make sure they have a good Christmas. So I'm going live in his place for any of those people who are like me and didn't want to spend time with family and can be on a live stream. Taxpayer of the Republic. Does your state require you to provide tenant with the property manager's address? Do you provide the office or home address for your tenants? I will ask local and state requirements. Yeah, it matters in your local. I don't know what my state requires. I just provide mine. They get my cell phone, they get my address. It's in the lease. I'm armed in every interaction. I was an officer for 8 years. I was in the Marines. I'm fine with that. If you're not, maybe you can use a property manager's address or something else. Know your local laws. It's not that hard to find people. And I have no problem with anonymity because treat people fairly. If you're a landlord who goes and turns off the water to try to get tenants to move out or takes the doors off to try to get tenants to move out, yeah, you're probably not going to want them to know where you live. But no, I treat everyone fairly, and I'm very open about firearms in the vehicle, firearms on my person, firearms in every room of my place. You can know where I live, sure. I think it does you any good. I'm not big on the anonymity that some people want from having an LLC or having a property manager because they don't want their tenants to know who they are. What are you hiding? It could be me, because how many landlords are doing a YouTube channel saying, here's how I did it? There, a lot of them are hiding from that too. That was an interesting question. I like that. Out of the box. I turned my third property into an Airbnb midterm rental 2 months ago. I'm hoping to get midterm rental insurance. I'm giving it until May before I turn it into a possible long-term rental. Nice. Good. I like the real estate investing X factor. The more money you're willing to risk, the more risk you're willing to take, the more money you can make, the more work you're willing to do, the more money you could possibly make. I'm lazy. I like long-term rental. I've never done midterm, never done short-term. I like long-term. Talk to my tenants once every couple of years if I'm lucky. And happy there. But everyone's strategy is different. Yours might be better. I think midterm and short-term make way more money than I would. SK, working an active W-2, I find it time-consuming to keep managing my bunch of rentals. Not sure how Lumberjack Landlord did it before his W-2, given he's spending lots of time along with R8. He hired, I met her a couple of times, he hired somebody to do the tenant turnover and to handle some of the tenant issues. So he didn't have a property manager. He had somebody who managed some of his properties. But it comes down to systems. What systems are you willing to put in place? Out of the box. I'm looking at 100-hour participation rule in my case. Yes, tax benefits of having the short-term rental can definitely have an impact. Something I never looked into. Michael Anthony, is this about buying stock prices lower or real hard assets that can hurt with a bigger bubble than 2008? First of all, I'm not sure what statement that was about. Oh, the recession, probably from the intro to the video. It's not about buying anything, and it's not about anything being in a bubble. There is no bubble. It's a myth. 2008 wasn't a bubble. 2008 was toxic debt that blew up in everyone's face. People saying that there's a bubble right now is somebody saying, here's an excuse not to take action or not to own the asset while we have a literal K-shaped economy happening. Inflation is making me stupid rich. The $600,000 in appreciation that happened in the year where I made more than with appreciation than W-2 and rental income happened because of inflation. And my tenants were paying more mortgages than I was. So if you're a renter, you're paying a mortgage. If you're not dollar cost averaging in stocks, then you're just letting fear dictate how you invest, and you will work until you die. So I'm not sure what that question was about. It sounds like you might not like my channel because I'm not a doomer. I'm not trying to get clicks by saying, here's all the fear and everything that's going to happen. Like Melody Wright has called 19 of the last 0 freaking crashes, but people watch hundreds of thousands of clicks on her videos because this time might be different. I just did that was the keynote speaker at BPCon BiggerPockets in Las Vegas in 2025. We were in October, we were there, and my keynote speech was on, I bought properties every time people said don't. In 2000, there's the quick version, 2013. In 2011, everybody said, don't buy, it's a double dip crash. So I started saving to buy because I had gotten laid off from law enforcement, found out about a bunch of debt I didn't know about till the divorce, was a single parent with 3 kids. I started saving. In 2013, prices started to go above where they were in 2008, and everybody said, don't buy. Bubble, my favorite word. So I bought a duplex. In 2015, everybody said, silver tsunami, the baby boomers are about to retire. We're going to have a bubble crash. It's going to implode and everything's going to come down. Don't buy yet. So I bought another duplex. In 2018, interest rates were above 6%. And everyone knows you can't buy real estate when interest rates are above 6%, even though they were at 18% in the 80s and people were buying real estate. And so I bought a duplex, made a huge mistake, paid off a property, lost $1 million. 2020, during a pandemic, an eviction moratorium, and a global shutdown, I bought a 4-plex and then emptied my retirement accounts and bought a triplex. In 2021, when forbearance was ending and every idiot on the planet was saying the bubble's going to pop because forbearance causes foreclosures, when it ends, prices are going to crash, I bought a duplex. And then I retired in 2022. 2023, when prices and rates were on the rise, I bought another duplex. In 2026, I'm probably going to sell one because it's in a city I don't like, but I'm going to buy 2 more. I did a video not too long ago. If there was a 40% crash, guaranteed 10% a year, because the biggest crash we've ever had in the history of the US, as far as real estate goes, is 8.9% drop in a 12-month period. So a 40% crash at 10% a year would take 4 years. You make more money buying a rental today than if you wait 4 years and buy it 40% less. I whiteboarded that math. Don't let bubble talk keep you from taking action. Charles, howdy. Did you buy the second helicopter yet? If you don't watch scary movies, you're not afraid of the dark. Apply it to real estate. Charles, you were a Marine. The best thing about people being afraid of the dark is they can't see us in the dark. And the Marines' favorite saying, we're surrounded. That means I can shoot in any direction. SK, how were you able to find capital to keep buying rentals? I don't make cash flow to accumulate money. My W-2 does not get me much savings. Do you get hard money? No. All of my deals are from the MLS, and all of my deals are from conventional loans. No private money, no hard money, no creative financing, all from the MLS, no seller financing, no wholesaling, no off-market guru crap. I moved from my house into an apartment and rented the house out for 2 years because I had a bad debt to income ratio, SK. I found out about $89,000 in bad debt in my name I didn't know existed until the divorce, and was only making $17 an hour. So single parent, 3 kids. Your position sounds like it was a little bit like mine, not making a lot, bad debt to income ratio, whatever. I moved into the apartment and rented the house out. First year, I lost money because I didn't know what I was doing and I wasn't educating myself. I started educating myself on BiggerPockets. And back then, this is a dinosaur that I am, 2011, 12, 13. It was articles. It wasn't even really a YouTube channel yet. They had YouTube, I hadn't found it. But I found articles written by Michael Zuber, who's now got the One Rental at a Time community. But he was talking about conventional loans, small multifamily, things like that. And I educated myself to get better. But it took 2 years to save the down payment for a duplex that I then house hacked. When I moved from the apartment to the duplex, I was paying $1,500 a month for the apartment. Moved into the duplex, my part of the mortgage was $300. That created $1,200 a month on top of overtime, side hustle. Like I said, I was playing World of Warcraft and selling things online. So lived super frugally. It took another 2 years. The first one was only a 5% down duplex. So it wasn't a lot. It was a $15,000 down payment, which was my life savings at the time, right? I had saved up enough to have the reserves. They used my retirement account for reserves for that. And I had the down payment. Moved into a place where there was a tenant on one side. My side was vacant and it needed a ton of work. All drywall stuff that I learned that I don't ever want to do drywall work again. And I'm not good at it, but I made it livable. But it was 2 years later to buy the next one. And then a year and a half later to buy the next one. So in the first 5.5 years, I bought 3 properties. That's when the income snowball kicks in, because I owned one property for several years and had rent increases. I owned one property for a couple of years, had a tenant move out, could add a closet to a den, turn a den into a bedroom, increase the rent there. Like, you get value add that happens over time. As you save your reserves right now, what is your insurance deductible? Have you saved up enough reserves to where you can call your insurance company and say, hey, I don't want a $2,000 or $2,500 deductible on my insurance policy. I want a $10,000, so that your premium comes down, increasing your cash flow. Like, you have all of these levers you can start pulling now that you have rentals. And if your job's not paying, get a new freaking job. I had a job that wasn't paying a lot, so I got a new job with the same company. I climbed the corporate ladder. I probably could have made more money if I switched companies and made more money sooner. But I got demoted all the way down to president of the company. What are you doing to advance your career? Because the first step in savings is not spending less. The first step in saving is increasing income. Do you have a side hustle? If you can tell me anything that was said in Game of Thrones, Yellowstone, Landman, the show The Office, then you have time you could have dedicated to a side hustle. For about 8 years, we didn't have cable. My poor kids grew up with the Friends DVD set a decade after it stopped being a thing. Every streaming service you have right now is because you don't want financial freedom. Every time you eat out right now and don't just get an appetizer to spend time with your friends is because you don't want financial freedom. It is the 5 years of suck because it sucks. And then the income snowball kicks in. You're either at a company making more money, or you got a promotion, or you're working overtime, and you start seeing the money from that. And your rentals have had time to make more money. You've done rent increases, decreased expenses, and the money starts coming in without you having to show up. And at the 10-year mark, for me, work was completely optional. I loved my job. I worked 2 more years. And in 2022, I retired from a job I loved, and now have more money to spend than I know what to do with. So I'll buy a couple more properties, which will create more money. It is a slow runway. It sucks. I get it. But it is absolutely worth it. And that's why I'm here doing these live streams. Michael Anthony. IRBT file for bankruptcy that it trades. I'm not sure now, and markets looking worse. More companies, lower outlook, and announcing layoff workers. We're laying it off this year. Yes, but it's a fraction of what it's been in the past. So you're letting fear dictate what you do, Alex. I would like a tour of your portfolio. Let's do it. We'll make a video that day. How much net worth do you, Zuber, or the lumberjack with the three amigos reach before each of you were comfortable to quit your W-2? What's a good target to have in mind? Understand cash flow is key, but what's your take on net worth? Without sarcasm, because my voice and face just has sarcasm, absolutely no meaning whatsoever. My net worth could be negative. It could be in the billions. Had nothing to do with it. I wouldn't know what my net worth was if I didn't have a YouTube channel and make content for other people to understand. I hit $1 million in net worth the same day that I hit $1 million in debt and didn't know it until I did a video like 4 months later. In 2021, I did a video called What Happened First, $1 million in net worth or $1 million in debt. And when I made the video, I found out what happened. They both happened on the same day. Net worth to me means nothing. It possibly, if it gets big enough, yeah, the what do you call it? Inheritance tax might kick in on my poor kids, so the government will get a bigger share than they're thinking they will. But who cares? It's my kids' job to be financially responsible for themselves. I'm not creating generational wealth. Creating generational wealth is one of the dumbest things people do, and it sets your kids up for failure. I have a niece and a nephew that wasted 15 years of their life. They turned 18 and they did F all. One played World of Warcraft 12 hours a day. Barely ever had a job. To the point where my brother basically gave up on him. Because they both sat there and said, my dad has 10 paid off rentals. When he dies, I'm set. Why do I need to do anything? And then that stubborn brother of mine keeps living. So my nephew in his 30s was like, I should probably ought to buy a rental. So he did. And then he bought a second. And then he relocated to Texas. And he's adding rentals this year. He's refinancing to a better rate. And he is creating a financial future because he finally gave up on the dream of generational wealth, which he will probably have at some point. But it's a really bad thing to work for. So net worth is less than meaningless. It is a powerful tool if you're the lumberjack landlord in Michael Zuber and you want more than 10 conventional loans in your name. I don't. I have 6, and that's plenty. I'll probably have 1 or 2 more this year, paid one off, which was a mistake. But if I get to 10 and I start going for DSCR loans, yeah, they care what your net worth is. They care what your net worth is. They care what your credit score is. They care about the property. So it can be something that you use later. So they had a knowledge. I had to do a personal financial statement for a possible DSCR loan I was looking at a couple of years ago. And that was my first time ever doing it because I just don't care about net worth. I don't want to sell. I don't want to think of any of that. What is my cash flow? Is my cash flow enough to support my life and to support black swan events? A recession, a pandemic, a stock market crash, me getting a major health concern and having to sell because I can't handle. I think this month I've had 3 text messages in all of December related to my real estate. One of them was about a rat. I should tell that tenant no pets, or there's now a pet fee. But if I get to the point where I can't handle 3 text messages a month, I have more issues than needing to sell my properties. So for me, it is cash flow, not net worth issues. That is a stock 4% rule metric. Yeah. Good question. Good way to be thinking. What matters? And to me, what matters is cash flow. What comes in, what goes out. And making sure I have, and this is very tricky, take a note. I want to make sure I have enough good debt. As a landlord, do I have the right to not renew the 1-year lease when it expires without reason? If there any obligation to explain to tenants why I'm not renewing the lease? Depends on where you live and whether your state is leaning blue or leaning right. Some states you have less rights and you have to have a reason for them to move out. You're going to renovate, you're going to move in, you're going to sell. Other places it's just like, yeah, our lease is up, you got to move out. So it depends on your local area. I live in Washington where there is no R, but there is a communist mindset and you have to have a reason to not renew your lease. If you don't want to renew, why don't you want to renew? Is it because the tenant sucks? Is there a lease violation you can use to get rid of them? Is it because you're too far below on rents and you need to increase the rent? So you should look up the binder strategy here on YouTube. That's how my tenants ask me to raise the rent, and then are happy when I agree. They actually ask you to raise the rent. As a free course called The Binder at diontalk.com. I don't charge for it. In that course, you get the seller financing letter, and you get the spreadsheet that me and my CPA made that I run my entire business on for free. You can download it from the course. Merry Christmas, Dion. Is living in a blue state like Connecticut worth it for real estate investing? Okay, so this is not a political channel. It's very easy to know which way I lean, but investing doesn't lean one way or the other. My goal is to invest in a red county in a blue state. So Millennial Mike invests. He lives in a blue state, and he house hacks a duplex in a high cost of living area. Very smart. I wish he'd do it again. Maybe now that he is got Tia in his life, maybe they'll make a smart decision and get a second house hack. She might be smarter than him, who knows. But he invested a distance in a red state because prices are low. Permit processes are super easy. Evictions are fast. Makes sense to him. Appreciation is negligible. Rent increases are negligible. So I invest in a red county where evictions still happen, maybe not as fast, but they still happen. Landlords still have some rights, but in a blue state, because Washington permit process is very long and very drawn out. So builders don't build. They just passed rent control in 2025, which is making me stupid rich. I'll make over $100,000 more in profit in the next 2 years than I was going to make because of rent control. So I want to own in the blue state where they make dumb rules that financially benefit the owners. People think, oh, poor people are for the left. No, it's super rich people convincing poor people to vote to the left because rich people benefit from the inflation and the taxes which the poor people pay, and the legislation that makes less investors, less building, cause appreciation and rent demand increase on my assets. So is Connecticut blue? Great. Find a red county. And for me, my brother invests in California. You would think it's too blue state, don't want to own there. How many people say, I can't invest in California, it's too expensive? Well, invest in Kern County. Red county, blue state. Faster evictions, less building, more restrictions, better rents, better appreciation. I invest in Pierce and Thurston and Kitsap, which I'm probably getting out of, in Washington State. I would not own in King County. If somebody gave me a property in King County, I would immediately sell it and own somewhere else. So I don't know how big Connecticut is because I went to school in America and they don't teach us anything. But are there places where you can get away from the red count or the blue county and the blue state to find a place where it does make sense? So it does make sense, but just maybe not in certain areas. Momo gets money. I'm hoping to own or occupy another 4 units next year. Also buy a duplex with 20% down. That's the ideal scenario, but we'll see what life and the market has in store exactly. I'm thinking of going to the ORAT event in Vegas in February. I hope to see you there. We're going to be doing 2 midnight Denny's meetups on Wednesday and Thursday night before the event on the Strip, nice and safe. If Denny's is not big enough, we'll go over to Bubba Gump's. We'll see. But I've wanted to own a fourplex that cost at least $1 million since 2021. That's when I started making content and I started talking about my next purchase should be a fourplex that costs at least $1 million. That's my goal. But in 2021, I found a duplex that made sense. And in 2023, I found a duplex that made sense. So what does the market tell you to do? And what does the deal tell you to do? That's the right way to look at it. I like how you said it. Flavio, Merry Christmas in Grandview. Momo, you only got about 2 weeks to buy tickets. It's getting close. SK, when you were growing in the real estate portfolio, did you get an uneasy phase of being constantly worried about what the next issue complaint will be about? How did you manage your mindset? When I was in the growing phase that first year, the experience was so bad and so negative, I tried to quit. I tried to give my property away. That's how bad the mindset can be. Here's the biggest mistake I made in real estate, just like a standalone video that I should do someday. But I didn't think I was a real landlord. I moved from my house into an apartment and rented the house out, right? Well, a real landlord has a lease. I'm just testing the waters. And a real landlord can trust a stranger. I didn't want to trust a stranger, so I rented to a friend. And who wants a contract between friends? So we didn't even have a lease. He was a single parent like me, so when rent was late, I thought I understood. Late became never. And when I finally went to the house to talk to him and say, hey, why aren't you paying the rent? He didn't live there. He had moved out and rented the house to someone else with a lease. So he was actually doing it better than me, making money and keeping it. And so went through a get the tenant out, which I almost thought would have been an eviction, but I got them out, had to fix the house, lost money that first year, like I said. And I thought, yeah, I just can't do this. My brother is smarter than me. He's reached financial freedom with real estate and retired. I'm just too dumb. I can't do it. The problem was I wasn't dumb. I was uneducated. Believe me, I know a lot of people who went to college that are dumb. I was uneducated on what mattered. Luckily, this is the luck that's in my story. Tell Michael Zuber he's really lucky. He loves that because the harder he works, the more lucky he is. But the luck in my story is I was underwater on my house because of the 2008 housing crash, which was why I got laid off from law enforcement to that recession. I got laid off from law enforcement. I was underwater on my house. I couldn't give it away. I couldn't even subject to it. I owed so much that nobody would even take over the mortgage. People could buy houses just like mine for 80% of what I needed to pay the mortgage on mine. So I was stuck with it. My mindset was so bad in that first year that if I could have got rid of that house, I would still be working today. I'd be counting on Social Security, what I can get into a retirement account, retiring super frugal, and probably having to have my kids take care of me when I was too old to work anymore. And I saw how they took care of pets. I don't want that. That little goldfish on the floor flopping around. Silver. Very, very sorry for Silver. I didn't want that for me. I wanted enough money to pay a professional that knows what they're doing to take care of me when I can't do it myself. So had I been able to get rid of my house, I probably never would have invested. But since I couldn't, I did the thing that you're doing now. You're on YouTube University. Find people who did what you want to do and educate yourself on how they did it. Your situation will be a little bit different. So you're going to take something from the lumberjack landlord, something from Millennial Mike, something from Zuber, something from Matt, the mortgage guy, something from all of the people that put content together. And you're going to think, oh, well, of all of that, I'll take these pieces and make your investing strategy. It'll meet your resources, your timeline, and your goals. And it will suck for 5 years. And then your future self will thank you over and over and over. Javon, is your debt to income ratio taken into account when buying the next property? That is a great question. And this is the bottleneck that most people think about. The first 2 years is really hard. And sometimes people don't invest because they never understand how easy the debt to income ratio problem is to solve. So here's how I started. Javon, I just said it a bit ago, but I'm going to do it really quick. I was 40, a single parent with 3 kids, got laid off from law enforcement, started making $17 an hour at a CDL school, so not a lot of income. I found out about $89,000 in bad debt in my name that I didn't know about until the divorce. So my debt to income ratio was crap. It wasn't 20% or 80%. It was like 300%. Like it was just bad. So I couldn't get a loan. I couldn't get a rental. I was done. I had to just quit. But luckily, I was talking to a lender. And all of this is in the book, Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person, which is on Amazon and Kindle and about to be on Audible. But my lender said, look, with your debt to income ratio, which I didn't know was a thing, you can't buy a property. And luckily, I was listening because she said this sentence and it changed my life. She said, unless you had something like rental income on your tax returns. Because if you have rental income on 2 years of tax returns, then the lenders can look at 75% of all of your rents in your debt to income ratio, including 75% of the rents of the property that you're trying to buy, which means it's more than you're making. And if you're buying right, 75% should be always covering your mortgages. So I moved from my house into an apartment and rented my house out for 2 years to get rental income on my tax returns. And here's the cool thing. The first year, I lost money. Real money, not just depreciation money, but I actually lost money because I was such a bad landlord. That still counted in the 2 years. They do not say you have to have positive rental income of 2 years on your tax returns. They just have to say rental income on 2 years tax returns because that means you know how to pay property taxes, find tenants, screen tenants, collect rents, report your rents, do all of the things that a rental will eventually turn into profit. Then they look at the numbers. So Even though I lost money in that first year, those 2 years made debt to income ratio almost irrelevant. 2 years, don't scale too fast. They want you to make mistakes. This is a Coach Carson quote where he was telling, somebody corrected me on this the other day at the Las Vegas BiggerPockets event. He was telling somebody, if you scale really fast in the beginning, that means you can make mistakes faster than you recognize them. And the faster you scale, the more times you're going to make that mistake before you even realize you made it. So you don't want to scale too fast, which is really smart. But that's why the lenders put that barrier of 2 years there. REI Jared is who he was telling. Thank you, Chester. So if you're just starting, debt to income ratio is a bottleneck to protect you and the lenders. Once you have rental income on 2 years, here's the actual sentences that the lenders have told me. You can buy anything you want. There's no limit to how much you can borrow, as long as you have the down payment and the reserves that we require. So, good question. SK, when you bought each property, were you cash flow negative? How much percent do you increase rent by each year? How long did it take to be cash flow positive? So I own 8 properties. 5 of them were cash flow positive first year. 3 of them were break even first year. Probably made some money, but the goal was to be break even the first year. There was value add opportunities there. Trying to think. Look at the rest of your question. Cash flow. No, I've never done a cash flow negative. My first rental was cash flow negative because I wasn't setting the rents right. I would really like it if you could look up the binder strategy. It's how I get my tenants to ask me to raise the rent. They've asked for $400 or $500 a month increases and then thanked me when I said yes. And now, lucky for me, Washington State instituted rent control. So my rent goes up 7% every year. And no, I will never outpace the market because the market goes up 20 to 25% a year when you have rent control. Because every time a landlord has turnover, now they're not going to put a tenant in there until they get the right tenant. They'll leave it vacant 3 or 4 months before they get the right tenant with the right increase. So rent control will always outpace my market's growth at 7% a year. I was doing 5% every other year. So the binder strategy after acquiring a property gets the rents where I want them, then 5% every other year kept me where I wanted to be. And because there wasn't rent control, I could do a big adjustment, another binder strategy when the pandemic happens or when forbearance ends or when rent control is threatened. But now that rent control is a thing in my state and I can't do a bigger adjustment, I am forced to have to do at least a 7% increase every year, where I was doing 5% every other year. So rent control tripled the amount of profit I'm going to make. Merry Christmas, Latimer. Hope you have a blessed new year too. Any CPA you recommend me to work with? I hold a bunch of rentals, not sure if I'm tax optimized. Well, I would ask a bunch of questions. Mine won't take any more, but I would check out Maine Bean Counters, Bob Langworthy, and have him recommend somebody in his network. Anthony Hermes, one of my duplexes in Puyallup. Nice. And you can always tell if somebody lives in Washington or not because they'll say something like Palupup. But in Puyallup, you own one. One side is $2,700 a month. Untimely payer, 14-day notice posted, no reply. Other side is $1,900 low with angel tenant. Should settle the non-payer before bindering the angel. When did you close? I would want to own long enough to make sure that that angel tenant is angel tenant for more than a couple of months. I'd probably resolve any kind of eviction you have to go through before the binder. Although, so Chesla has a duplex where one side went through 4 evictions the first year that she had it. And the tenants on the other side are model tenants. Like pay early, ask if there's anything they can do. Because they've seen that Chesla doesn't play. If somebody doesn't pay the rent, or if they have a noise issue or something, she's an eviction person. She just follows through. Here's the court laws. You have a lease to protect the tenants, but it also protects me. And so she'll follow through. We've done 4 evictions for her on that one property. The new tenants are amazing too, because they also talk to the existing tenants who say, yeah, this landlord's great, but they don't play. We've seen her kick 4 people out with the court system. And yeah, it was people who stopped paying, people who trashed the place, people who moved out, whatever it was. But the perception could help you with the binder strategy, depending on how this eviction is going. If they've just stopped paying, you have a valid reason to evict. And letting the tenant know that, yeah, we're evicting them, we're struggling. This is what their rent is. This is what the area rent is. This is what Section 8 would pay. This is what BH in the area is pay. This is what the examples are. Your rent is $1,900. We're kicking somebody out who's getting 27. We're probably going to get 28 or 29 when they move out. What do you think is fair? It's probably not going to be what you expect, but you also have rent control in Washington State. Find out if yours qualifies for that or not. Because you might just be, so I still bind your strategy with the rent control. It's 7% plus inflation. So what is inflation? Add that together, you could do that. I just do 7%. So the tenant knows how far below the market they are, how big the increase I would get if they moved. And I'm not doing the actual cap of plus inflation. I'm just doing 7%. So happy tenants and happy rent rolls. Frank Sanchez, I know you cared about finding good deals, but in the first few properties, what was your cash flow on each after all expenses? I brought broke even deals. My first duplex while I lived there, I was paying $300 a month to live there, right? Because it was a house hack. House hack, I run the numbers like I had moved out and both units were rented out. It would have cash flowed then. But I would buy a break even deal because everybody's worried about cash flow and yield. Don't lose money. Don't buy alligators. It's a 10-year journey. If you buy a rental and you buy another one in 2 years, at 10 years, you'll have 5. And that's not the magic. The magic is you will own one for 10 years, one for 8 years, one for 6 years, one for 4 years, one for 2 years. So you're going to own those rentals with all of that time for rent increases, value add, refinance opportunities, reduce premiums on insurance, like all the things that you can do to increase cash flow, and inflation will make you richer over that time. So it's not owning 5 rentals that can set you free. It's owning them for a decade that sets you free. I'm worried about what are the physical aspects of the neighborhood and the property that match my strategy. And my strategy is buy and hold long-term tenants. I don't want tenant turnover. So I want a safe neighborhood that's not fancy. I do not want to own in a good school district because that means you age out your tenants. When the kid graduates middle school or high school, they're going to move out of there. They're in the good school district because the school matters. Good school district means taxes are higher because that's why the good school district is there, because they have the taxes to pay for it. So I don't want to own there. I want to own in a safe neighborhood that's working class. I want side-by-side units, not over-under. I want washer-dryer hookups in each unit. I want good parking. I want pet-friendly fenced yards. All of these boxes are checked. I'll buy a break-even deal today. I don't care about the yield. That property will add to my cash flow in the next several years exponentially more than a property that has good yield, but's in a high turnover market or doesn't have washer dryer hookups or the parking isn't right, or it's in a neighborhood where I can't send a handyman without providing them with a bulletproof vest. Like all of them, I want to check all those other boxes more than I want to check the math box. Math is important to the point. It's so important you don't practice it till you get it right. You practice it till you can't get it wrong. But once you can't get it wrong and you know you're not going to lose money, how many other boxes are checked off? I've got an over-under duplex. I've got a property that doesn't have a fence. I don't own any that don't have washer-dryer hookups. I don't own any that don't have good parking. But I don't check all the boxes. And math is one of the boxes. It's a great question. Frank, what do you do to ensure you're always compliant with all landlord laws? Well, right now, AI is helping a lot. Stay informed with your local real estate meetup groups. WARE for Washington, the Tacoma, it's now the Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person Facebook group. But in your local area, there are meetups where they will talk about new legislation changes. Pay attention, see what makes it to committee, what makes it out of committee. I run my lease so I retained an attorney early on for an eviction, which I still haven't had to do for myself. I've gone through evictions for other people. I gave the lease to the attorney and I said, hey, this is the lease I plan on using. What would you add or take away to make your job easier if we ever go through an eviction together? Have an attorney in your market tell you this is legal, this is not legal. You might find out something like the wrong terminology can void the entire lease. And the example is, if you have a non-refundable pet deposit, your entire lease is void. Because the definition of a deposit is it's refundable. To call something non-refundable deposit means all of the legal terminology in your lease is void and can be thrown out of court. So if you have a non-refundable pet fee, change one word and all of a sudden you're legal. So have your attorney look at it to make sure they can catch things like that I wouldn't know and don't want to know, and AI might miss. Give it to your attorney. They might charge you an hour or half an hour's worth of work to give you the right lease that you then use going forward. Z does. I bought a single family house before I found you. Bad neighborhood, but I think I could break even if rented. Would you sell and go for a multifamily or hang on to it and just save for multi? I'd like to rent it out. I own a single family house that if I purchased it in the first 10 years, it would have lost money. I owned it for 10 years and lived in it before I turned it into a rental. And I lost money the first year because I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't have the binder strategy yet. That was developed because of that house. Now, here's the difference between my situation and yours. So you own a single family house before you found me. I owned that single family house before I decided I wanted to be a landlord. I won that house in a divorce. So there's a petty little tiny part of my caveman brain that says, no, you won the kids, you won the house, you win at life, don't sell it. If it breaks even, I don't think I would sell it. It depends. If you sold it, how much money would you have to redeploy? Did you live in it for 2 out of the last 5 years? Do you have the IRS 121 rule allowing you to have up to $250,000 in gains, tax-free if you're single, $500,000 if you're married? Would a 1031 work? Will there be a bunch of money to redeploy? If you can get a 5 or a 10% cash on cash return by buying a rental, what does break even look like if you redeployed those funds? It could be more money. It's a lot to look at there. I've never sold a property. I'll be probably selling my first one in 2026, and it's not because of math. It's kind of because of meth. Because Port Orchard, Washington. No, it's because I hate the permit office in Port Orchard, Washington. And it's far from the rest of my portfolio. I want to be closer to my kids and friends and family. So I'm not selling because of math. Math might tell you to sell it, might math tell you to keep it. I think keeping it and getting the experience of renting it out, having the lease, screening tenants, placing tenants, already knowing that it's, you said it might break even. Does that include setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy? Because there's a big difference between getting enough rent to cover the mortgage and getting enough rent to maintain the asset. There's a whole bunch to look at there. I think that is something definitely, if you're in the course, we would do like a portfolio deep dive and figure out what should be done. Throughout the entire month of January, there will be course calls every week. As long as I have Wi-Fi, we're going to be on the island of Koh Tao. We're in Hua Hin until like the 9th, and then we're in Koh Tao for the rest of January. As long as we get our visa extension, we'll see. Might end up going to Singapore, we'll know. But it depends on if I have Wi-Fi. If we have Wi-Fi, we'll have a course call every week where we'll do stuff like that. Thank you, Chester. Break-even deals to break record deals. Nice. I like that corridor, Chris. That's a t-shirt right there. SK, what's your take on Meet Kevin having sold all his rentals in primary and Ventura area? He was big on real estate before. Right, but he learned his lesson with California, like Graham Stephan did, that the blue county, blue state doesn't work. And they often make, Meet Kevin and Graham Stephan have made similar mistakes. Let me see if I can sum this up really as clearly as possible. When I was looking at retiring, here's the fear that I had before I walked away from my job, right? I was making good money finally. I love the job. So why would you quit that? Time freedom, scuba diving all the time, whatever you want. Is there a dive today? What are we doing? Are we doing ocean today or pool or pool? Okay. All right. So that means we got a couple hours before sun hits it long enough. And
it's actually cold out today.
Okay. It's cold. It's like what, 78?
No, it's like 82.
82. Yeah, that is cold. Okay. Yeah. So that's the point of this, is to have the financial freedom to figure out what you want to do next. But Meet Kevin and Graham Stephan got so wealthy through YouTube. They make more money by making a video than they would by owning another rental, right? That they were really nice guys. And Graham Stephan didn't raise the rent on some tenants for 10 years. So when I was looking at retiring, I was afraid, what if I walk away from this job and then I'd lose all the rentals, right? Because there are people who used to have rentals, right? Frank and Cynthia had rentals in 2008. There were people who owned rentals in the 80s and 90s, and they sold them. I have a friend, David, who people call him Racist Dave because he does race cars with, his motorcycle on tracks and his Corvette on tracks. I'm trying to get that nickname to stick. But Dave is now into notes and he's retired, but he used to own a sixplex in Tacoma. And I was just not terrified, it's the wrong word, but I was concerned. What if I walk away from my job and then whatever made people lose their rentals, like Graham is selling his rentals in California, Meet Kevin sold his rentals in California. What if I lose the rentals? Then I'd have to go back to work. My worst case nightmare scenario is I'm back to work like everybody else is. So maybe I shouldn't retire. So I spent 2020 to 2022 hunting for these people. I wanted to find the people. I didn't know Dave had owned rentals. Meet Kevin and Graham Stephan were making videos about buying rentals at that time, not selling them. But I was like, how do you find people who used to own rentals? There's just not groups of, hey, we're the recovering used to be landlords group. But then I found them. I was trying to find them to say, why did you lose your rentals? I needed to know why. And I finally found them in the Choose FI community, the FIRE community, Financial Independence, Retire Early. There's a bunch of them, Mr. Money Mustache, Choose FI, Paula Pant, Afford Anything, all of those groups, super smart people, mostly invest in real estate. Although Paula has 7 rentals, at least last time I watched her content, she had 7 rentals. But in those groups, there's a bunch of people who own stocks that don't like real estate. And a lot of them used to own real estate. And so I started DMing, I slid into the DMs of some of these people and I'd be like, hey, Brian, you're talking about rentals suck and you used to own them. Why don't you own them? And there were some people, I'd talk to them and some people were like, oh, death, divorce, kids, whatever. There was a couple of like one-off stories, but there was this consistent theme, the same one that hit Graham. They said something as dumb as this: I didn't want to lose a good tenant, so I didn't raise the rent. So they lost a good asset instead. Some of them lost it to me because they didn't raise the rents. I bought my fourplex, the rents were super repressed, and everybody in the market was like, oh, don't buy that, look how low the rents are. And I'm like, yeah, it makes over $4,000 a month now, a couple of years later. That's terrible. The binder strategy, for me, solved the problem that so many other people had issue with. That a lot of people lost their property because they didn't raise rent. My brother David had tenants in place since 2006. He had never raised the rents. He finally did because rent control hit. Now he's like, yeah, I got to raise the rents now. But there were a lot of people who, Graham said, I would have made more money if I buried the money in my yard than if I kept that rental. Well, yeah. A small increase to gross is a massive increase to net. 5% increase to gross is sometimes a 50% increase to net. So if you're doing rent increases, as you should, the binder strategy, or now that rent control's there every year, this asset makes really good sense. I also make less than $1,000 a month from YouTube, right? Graham Stephan and Meet Kevin can make $10,000 or $20,000 on a video. Should they own rentals? Maybe they should diversify. Maybe the stocks are more their thing. The tenants, toilets, and termites might not make sense, but do you have a YouTube channel with 4 million subscribers where if you do 3 videos a month or 4 videos a month, you change your net worth by a couple $100,000? Maybe you don't need rentals. But I could turn YouTube off tomorrow, or YouTube could turn off tomorrow, and I financially wouldn't feel it. When I quote my cash flow every month, these are the numbers I quote. A little over 35,000 gross rents coming in. It's actually like 37 now because of rent control. Thanks. Mortgages are still a little over 9,000. I set aside 5,150 for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. So 60,000 a year getting set aside when my worst year so far was 36, leaving me with about 21,000. It's closer to 23 now, but 21,000 a month to live on when I spend about 4. Even when I try to find ways to find money, to spend money. I don't include YouTube. None of those numbers included YouTube. None of those numbers included any of the affiliates. Like in the section below, you can buy a book from Amazon, Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person. I make like $4 if you buy the book. I think I make like $4 if you buy it from Kindle, whatever it is. So a decade of my life in a book, I can make $4 if you buy it. Or if you're like Alex and you buy 10 or 20 of them and you give them away, which is much appreciated, and don't give away the last one. I actually signed it. Don't give this one away. Give away the knowledge. And Alex has that one, I think, still. But I don't include that. What else do I have? I have a little side hustle where I'll look at a court case and be an expert witness as a CDL driver or law enforcement or CDL instructor, and that can make $1,000 for a couple hours work. I do 3 or 4 of those a year. I never include that. So my cash flows just from the rentals is what I talk about that reached financial freedom. If your income is so vastly more from something like YouTube, and I'm not saying it's easy. Graham puts like 10 or 12 hours into a 10-minute video. I put the amount of this live stream into this live stream. This is a very different world we live in. That's why I make less than $1,000 a month. And probably because Graham's more likable than me. Less conflict. Although conflict works if you like Caleb Hammer, because that seems to work. Yeah. So I don't want to own in a blue county in a blue state. And I think my YouTube would have to blow up before I'd ever think of selling a rental to not have that issue. But I'm probably never going to do that. That's not my plan. What's your take on buying forced equity properties? Hate it, did it once, never do it again. Meaning buying property that needs more work at a discount, get work. That's the Burr method: buy, rehab, rent out, refinance, repeat, regret. So I didn't do any while I was growing, over a decade of just buying off from the MLS, rent ready or tenant occupied already. Minor repairs, spend $1,000 or $2,000, coated locks, motion sensor LED lights, fix things from the inspection. But then I retired in 2022, and in 2023, I bought my first Burr and hate it. Will never do it again. I made over $300,000. It's probably what I'm going to be selling next year. I hate it. I hate the idea of going to the county or your city and begging for permission to upgrade your property. No, I hate permits. I hate delays. I hate managing the projects. It's a job. And if you stop working, the forced equity stops coming in. I'm buying 2 more in 2026. They will be from the MLS. They will be conventional loans. One might be a VA loan, but still conventional VA loan. As little work as possible. Not my thing. You have to know yourself. And if it creates work, are you going to do more? If I buy a rental, if I buy another fourplex and have 4 more tenants, I will not feel the difference between 17 and 21 tenants. If I buy a rehab, I will lose 6 months of my life to managing a project. I don't care if it made $1 million. It's not worth it. That's the beauty of financial freedom. When you don't have enough, money is everything. And you think, I would do a rehab for 10 grand in profit. No, I wouldn't do a rehab for $1 million in profit. Because once you have enough, money is just a thing. And my time is more important to me than profit. SK from Corridor, I'm buying the same thing. Single family house with triplex behind it. Lots of upside in the neighborhood. If you're willing to do the work, I think if you can rent it and improve forced appreciation on turnover, it's a good move. As long as you can handle the loss of the amount of your life it takes. Wealth with Rentals. Howdy. Merry Christmas to everybody. Been doing this for a couple hours, filling in for the lumberjack landlord. SK. I think we're coming up to the end of the comments too. My high-tech colleagues just focus on their W-2 growth and just invest in indexed funds passively. I hustle with real estate regularly, taking at times backseat with W-2. How do I explain to myself it's worth it? The 4% rule is a valid option if they're making good money. So Joe Kuhn, Kuhn, is here on YouTube. He invested in stocks. Took him 34 years. He retired at 54 with a stock portfolio. He used the buckets methods. He's been retired for 6 years now. He's 60 or so. He makes great content on how to retire and how to live off stocks. So it's viable. I didn't start until I was 40 and I wasn't making a lot of money. House hacking had a bigger impact, and I can't house hack my Amazon stock. I can't call Jeff and say, hey, why don't we do this and increase the income or the dividend on those stocks? You have no control. You don't have levered depreciation. So when you do pay yourself from stocks, it's going to be income. I pay myself from rentals all the time, and it is passive income. It is not passive. It is passive income with the IRS, meaning I haven't paid a penny in rental income tax. Choose an asset class that excites you. And if rentals don't excite your coworkers, they should invest in them. When it comes to real estate, my first 5 years of investing, people called me an idiot. My brother still calls me a moron for having more mortgages. He just says, that's dumb because he's never done it. He used the home equity line of credit and paid it off, rinse and repeat method. But the last 5 years, when work became optional and I spend months in Portugal, months in Thailand, months gaming just because I feel like gaming or scuba diving or whatever, a lot more of my friends and family reach out and say, how did you do this? Why did you do this? Why was it only a decade? Because they've been investing. And they're going to retire when retirement accounts matter. They're going to retire when Social Security matters or when Medicaid matters. I'm going to have 15 years before I would even look at Medicaid or Medicare or any of that, of traveling, of no alarm clock, no boss, no compliance, no expectations, no schedule. It's freaking amazing. And it is not your job to convince them. It's your job to convince you. I like the way you structured your question. It's worth it. Pick any asset class, real estate, stocks, crypto, business, master it. Master it to become wealthy. And once you're wealthy, maybe then diversify a little bit, but don't do it on the way. Awesome. Howdy. Merry Christmas, Josh. And you have a long name here. Z does the where. Frank Sanchez. How'd you figure out how many rentals you needed? Can you go over the calculation? I'm assuming it starts with how much cash flow a month you want, and reverse engineer. Very close. Very, very close. So it's not how many units. You're right. It's how much cash flow. And you have most of the data now. But it's nuanced, right? So we can look at the data from the last 6 months. Look at all of your spending habits. What are you spending? Some things will go up, some things will go down. When you walk away from your job, you're no longer saving for retirement. You're no longer paying W-2 highest taxes. You don't have the commute. You might not have the eating out every day, have to at work because of where you're working or door dashing or all those things that can be associated with the clothing you have to have for work. Your uniform press or whatever the costs are, those go away. A lot of times your employer has been paying your healthcare premiums. Your employer does not give you healthcare. Your employer gives you healthcare insurance. So you now have to pay for your healthcare insurance, one cost that goes up. So have an asset, pay it. If it's your 4% rule from cash from stocks, sure. If it's how much your business can cover, sure. With real estate, it's I have an asset for every expense, how much cash flow goes to the thing. And I kind of associate it this way with the travel duplex, the healthcare triplex, the vodka fourplex, the vehicle duplex. Like each asset is assigned to an expense. In reality, it's just cash flow. But then retirement and walking away from your W-2 is not only an income equation, it's an expense equation. If you come to Thailand and you stay in a $1,300 a night resort, they exist. The meals will be $200 or $300. The massage will be $150. Like the drinks are $15. Everything is like that. Or you can go to the 5-star hotel that's $35 a day, that has the $6 massage, that has the $7 meal, right? How do you want to live when you go to places like this, or when you live in your own? I live in Washington where there is no R, but there is sales tax. There is a commute cost to go over the Narrows Bridge. They have tolls, right? You have the expense. What does it cost you to live your life? How much does it cost you to go diving? How much is your gaming computer, and how many new ones do you need to buy every year? I got the math on that one messed up maybe. But when you figure out how much you spend by looking at the last 6 months, you can kind of project forward. This is how much it takes. And then there's this thing that I use called the sliding scale. If you can live on $1,000 a month, let's say you do move to Thailand and you get way outside the tourist areas, and you can rent a place for $300 a month that has everything you need, including a pool, and you can get the $6 massages, and you can eat at the street food, and so $2 a meal, and you can live a very healthy life for $1,000 a month. I think you need to have 4 or 5 times that coming in. So you have a 5-time multiplier, 6-time multiplier. The less you need, the bigger the multiplier you need. I spend around 4, right? I eat out all the time. I raised 3 picky kids. I took an oath to never cook again. I eat out all the time. I like to hunt down healthy food, which is not always easy. So you have to find the healthy food to eat out. I scuba dive all the time. I want to dive all the time. I want to game all the time. I like to take road trips. Like I took a road trip I think this year I took 1 through Texas, 1 through Louisiana, 1 through Yellowstone, and then 2 months in Portugal, 3 months in Thailand. So I like to just take trips. So what is your monthly expense? I spend around 4. because I house hack, have free housing, drive a paid off vehicle. So my expenses are more what I like to do than how much life costs. So I went with a multiplier of 4. When cash flow passed 16,000, I felt silly going to work. And now that it's above 25,000, I'm really glad I don't work, so I have all the time to enjoy this money. If you need $20,000 or $25,000 a month to live your life because you have younger kids, like Matt has 19 kids under 5, and one of them has health concerns, and he had to have his own health insurance, created an LLC to get his health insurance in place. I don't think if he needs $20,000 a month to live comfortably, I don't think he needs 80,000. He has more than that, but I would go with like a 2-time multiplier or a 1.1. If you need 20 and you have 30 coming in, I think you're safe. If you need 20 and you have 40 coming in, you're safe. So it's what do you spend? What's the multiplier of that? And then do you benefit or do you lose to inflation? Inflation is my best friend. The year I had $600,000 in appreciation growth in my portfolio was because we had 9% inflation. Everyone else is like, oh, the eggs are so much and the gas is so much. And I'm like, holy crap. Look how much rents went up because of this. Look how much more money I'm making. So are you going to retire in Thailand? No. I'm an American citizen, US, whatever you want to call it. So I'm never going to give up citizenship. I'm probably not going to go for the permanent visa. It's very easy to retire in Thailand. Got to be 50 or older, got to have $25,000 in the bank or a set income of a certain amount a month. So it's very easy to qualify for that. They just want to make sure if you come to Thailand, you're not coming here to take a job, you're coming here to spend money. But will I spend 3 or 4 months a year here in the winter? Yes. Is that retiring here? No. I almost made a mistake, and this is what I'll wrap this video up with. I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and a Christmas full of amazing that you deserve, and a year full of amazingness for next year. But I went to Portugal in 2023, right after I retired, with the intent of buying a property. I had about $500,000 in the bank, and I had never had that much before. I went to there, me and my brother David, we went there. We toured the whole Algarve, met with several realtors, looked at several villas and everything. Prices were okay. I realized I didn't want to buy there. And 2 things. 1, I didn't know that the Portuguese celebrate sadness, saudade. No thanks, not my thing. I like to enjoy life. And 2, and this is just my perception, this is my opinion, the unethical way real estate is transacted in Portugal. The agent gets a 5% if they're licensed, 4% if they're not licensed commission. The seller tells the government how much it's sold for because they have to pay the taxes, and they lie. And you just sign a paper saying, yeah, that's how much I paid, but you actually pay the real amount. So I'd be in jail. And while prison is the ultimate house hack, it is not my chosen form of retirement. All the government has to do in Portugal, it's this simple. Look up how much was reported for the sale. Look up how much of a commission was paid to the agent. Oh, if those don't line up, mortgage fraud was committed or purchase fraud, tax fraud was committed. I'm not going to jail. And so in rethinking buying there, having a place in the Algarve to travel to, I realized if I purchased there, even if I rented it out when I'm not there, I only vacation in Portugal. Versus I came back to the US, took my $500,000, bought my first and last BRRRR, bought a duplex, just owner occupied, did a BRRRR, rented out the other side, no mortgage on it. So it cash flows. My portfolio still cash flows. So that cash flows 12 months out of the year. So I come to Thailand for 3 months and I have the cash flow from 12 months to pay for the 3 months that I'm here. So that could be the travel duplex where I live for free. But I also have a tenant taking care of the property while I'm gone, telling me, hey, the neighbor said somebody was skulking around the side of the property the other day or whatever. Or there's a leak or there's a storm. I get to hear all of that while I'm traveling. So not going to retire in Thailand. Wouldn't want to be tied to one country because I've got more countries I want to try out. My goal in 2022, when we went to Portugal, was to actually go to Russia. But their little conflict said, no, how about we go to Portugal? And then I went back in 2025 with Chesla and David, and now we're in Thailand, and we'll be here till February. And then she's going back to Portugal in March, We might do Scotland in the summer, and then I'll do Thailand in the winter. Yeah. Geo arbitrage, not geosynced. I hope you have a day full of amazing. Ciao.